living since being thrown out of the Windsor estate. The police have arrested Andrew Mountbatten Windsor. It's an extraordinary revelation and development on this story involving the Epstein files and all the allegations that have been swirling around about Andrew over the many years, from Virginia Giuffre, now sadly deceased, and since then, and certainly what's been contained in the Epstein files as released in the last few weeks. But the police have arrived at Sandringham Estate this morning, where Andrew has made his new home. It's his 66th birthday today. What a birthday present that is. He has been arrested by the police. Of course, the brother of the current king, the second son of our late Queen Elizabeth. This is an extraordinary development. Those of us who've been talking an awful lot about establishment cover-ups and lack of, should we say, interest by the police in what are very, very serious allegations against Andrew. Perhaps pleased that that pressure has finally been put on the police, and they have done the job of actually looking into these issues seriously. Must bear in mind, of course, that the Prince has not been charged with any crime at this point, and he has always denied any wrongdoing in relation to any of the allegations about him. We'll give you more on that. We'll talk to you about that throughout the show, but I'm just being told that the arrest has been on suspicion of misconduct in public office. This, of course, relates to those Epstein file allegations and the documents that, if they are true, would suggest that he had, it is alleged, passed on basically what was confidential government information when he was the UK trade envoy for this country for 10 years to Jeffrey Epstein for Jeffrey Epstein's financial.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Well, a very good morning to you. What is it? Tuesday, the 24th of March. Welcome along. It's Talk Breakfast, the home of common sense. And, of course, the home of you, the alarm clock Brit, is already up, probably at it, trying to get in the bathroom or back from work, whatever you've done, a night shift or whatever, if you're heading out. Welcome to the show. It's where you come and your views on today's news matter to us. Christ, it sounds like it's sort of like lines that rhyme. Listen, as ever, we're back to the A-team. The man that had the poops has returned. Alicia has resigned herself to being in the dark. And Christian, top producer, is back in the building. Big M, known simply because of his weight, not his... Anyway, he's pushing the buttons, Big M's here. Nehar's here, and G-Spot isn't here because we can never find him. He's probably gone to the toilet. If you want to be on the show today, 0344 499 1000. A surprise guest to do the papers with me in a minute that will excite you and make you very happy. But first, let's talk about what's happening. Of course, everybody wants to talk about what's happening in Iran. Trump's gone from I'm going to completely obliterate the Straits of Hormuz to there's a ceasefire. The Iranians say he's blinked first, we've won. It's a tinderbox. It continues. We will, of course, keep you updated throughout the show and throughout the day on Talk. But domestically, this is just brilliant. Thank you so much indeed, Ed Miliband. You've made my morning. He's been accused, I think quite rightly, by Kemi Badenoch of net zero fantasism. Today she's going to use an opposition motion in Parliament to force a vote on unblocking drilling in the North Sea. Right? We have this discussion almost daily. And the analogy is really simple. You've got a resource, you idiot, Miliband, that will pay off this country's debts and help all those businesses and people who are struggling. But your net zero madness means that you ignore that. Yesterday, the Offshore Energies UK Limited warned that Britain needs to urgently produce its own gas and oil. We've got an area that we could drill, but we won't do it. We're not quite sure why, apart from him being a net zero fanatic. But right next to where we could drill, why am I pointing? The North Sea's not over there in the corner of the studio. The Norwegians are drilling next to where we could drill, and then we're buying it off them at an inflated price. And I'm going to try and keep calm, because net zero is complete and utter madness. Everybody, they always say, don't they, oh, you know, a majority of people worry about the climate. If you ask the average person, they probably would go, yeah, you know, I have a concern about... I don't give a toss, but some of them do, right? But when you think about what this madness is going to cost, when you think about how this man will not listen to it, do you know what he's going to do on the back of all of this today? He's going to announce, I ensure from now on all new houses will have heat pumps and solar panels. Well, I'm not buying one that's got a heat pump or a solar panel in, and actually their record on building new houses mean that none will be done. That might interest you. Net zero madness. We need to get Miliband out as well. Also, you'll have seen that great report by Samara Gill yesterday, live from Golders Green, that appalling ambulance attack. The Home Secretary, Shabana Mahmood, admits that anti-Semitism is on the rise, OK? She seems to be doing, unless I'm missing the point, she seems to say a few right things. No doubt she'll be quashed. I mean, nothing from the government. I would have thought that the government would have perhaps done what they did after the Southport riots and taken to the streets and got that scum and thrown it in jail. Do you know that to prove it, an art exhibition in Kent, we discovered yesterday, showing Jews eating babies has been deemed, I can't do this, not abusive or insulting by the police. I said it yesterday, I'll say it again. Any form of racism in my mind is abhorrent. But why is racism against Jews, anti-Semitism, deemed to be so less important than other racism? Why is that? Is it the colour of that person's skin? I don't know. If you're feeling miserable, this will make you feel even more miserable. Or maybe it'll make you feel pride. Do you remember HMS Dragon, your feet? That one ship that we got that wouldn't leave Portsmouth because the Union wouldn't get it ready, and anyway Amazon hadn't delivered the food. It's finally arrived. It's taken 3 weeks. It's now arrived in Cyprus to defend the Brits that live there. On the exact night that Donald Trump says the war's over. I mean, brilliant. We'll also have a discussion about defence spending. When will we spend enough to make ourselves viable? There is a story, very quickly, on the front of the Sun, which I think we have to talk about. The Barmy Beeb bans Bob Monkhouse. There was an episode of The Repair Shop, which is television for old people. Even I found it exciting now. Oh, redo that painting. No, thanks. A production worker on this show got offended by a Bob Monkhouse joke. Let me give you a Bob Monkhouse joke. I'm going to give you Bob Monkhouse jokes, who, by the way, I saw live as was the greatest stand-up in the history of the world. He said, I can still enjoy sex at 74. I live at 97... No, number... I got that wrong! Jesus! I live at 76, so it's no distance. Big M's just shaking his head. God, you're crap at this joke. Right. 0344 499 1000. Text to 87222. How nice is this? A very good morning to our new paper reviewer, Samara Gill.
Hello.
How are you?
Good morning, everyone. Yeah, I'm great, actually. It's great to be in the studio this early. I'm loving it. It's such a good energy in the morning with you at 6 a.m. Let's go. I mean, the papers, there's no shortage of stories this morning. My goodness.
Can you show them what we gave you to get you in the right spirit?
Yeah, am I allowed to show this?
It's my show. You can do whatever you want.
For those listening, it is a Australian beer, an Australian beverage. It is 0% alcohol, though, so just
We've got her a Corona Zero, mate, to get her in the right frame of mind this morning, the little dinky bird.
Yeah, I know. The thing is, I might take it a bit too seriously, and this paper review might go off the rails, even if it's 0%. You know?
Well, you'll be fine. Can I start, actually, differently to Net Zero? Yesterday, that appalling Golders Green attack, and we sent you down there. Yeah. You delivered reports into us and into Julia. These 4 ambulances, and Hatzola ambulances, and the thing that I wanted to say today as well is, funded by the Jewish community, driven by volunteers from the Jewish community, but available to the whole community, set fire in the middle of the night. A sort of group that I can't even bring myself to try and say their name, admitted responsibility. But for us, it was pretty obvious again, anti-Semitism on the rise. You went down there yesterday. I know you did a quick bit into us, because and more across the day. I was talking to Den the other day, yesterday, about it. What was your view? Just give us an update of what it was down there, what it was like in the community.
Look, I mean, it was solemn, but it was angry. I've been to a few of these situations, and you usually see people quite upset, tears. This time it was a different emotion. People were enraged. There were journalists such as Al Jazeera that were actively booed and chased out. The BBC was also hounded. And you know what? I can completely, even though I'm all for the free press and I believe that they should report, I can completely understand why the community was so upset, because these are, agencies that have done some really anti-Semitic things across their time of broadcast. And I think that
the BBC didn't even cover this till 10 o'clock yesterday.
Precisely.
Which is absolutely appalling.
Exactly, and I think that's what you can kind of see. When you see that tension between the media and the people, you can just see that people have had enough. And I really do empathise with the Jewish people. It was keep calm, it was carry on, the coffee shops were going, the bagels were being baked, which is also a glimmer of hope within this, but it's just horrific. I mean, I was looking for the front page of the Metro because there's a horrible story about how one of those ambulances had actually saved a baby just the week before, and that baby was actually from Iran. So that just ties the whole story together as to these ambulances were not just for the Jewish people, they were for the whole community, and I think it's an assault on the whole community, and they were really feeling it. It was, the tensions were high. There was about a different fight every couple of hours over there. It was something else.
I've said it to the point where I'm sure people think it's all sort of obsession with me. I don't understand how a community that had done to it what they had done to them 60 years ago should put up with blatantly being treated as they're done. And again, a bit, and I don't just aim this at Starmer, actually, I have to be honest, a bit like the rape gang inquiry. I don't know how our country looks itself in the eyes. If we are able to get people on the street within 20 minutes to round up those far-right thugs, not that everybody after Southport was, but some were, OK, but everybody was labelled far-right by Keir Starmer, and the military went on the streets, the police, it seemed, and arrested these people. They were taken in on camera, they were tried on camera, and they were thrown in jail. This scum, this is... I do fear that we are getting to a point where certain things will be normalised, and I think that's fundamentally wrong, and I will forever stick up for the Israeli people, and I'll say, everybody will say, you know, the problem is Netanyahu. Yes, I'm sure there are things that the Israelis do in terms of war and things that you would disagree with, but that shouldn't, I don't think, impinge 1,000,000% on 250,000 Jews who live in this country, have lived amongst us, built businesses. I find it really dangerous. I mean, I said yesterday, I'd love your opinion on this. You know, our government have created an anti-Islamophobic Muslim czar. Where's the anti-Semitism, I can't even say the word, Semitism czar? That to me sums up what happens, and it's appalling. And he's married to a Jewish woman, Starmer, for Christ's sake.
Yeah, he is, but what he cares about really are the voter bases. And when we're looking at this sectarian politics which is thrown around, which basically means, you know, in translation, pandering to certain groups in order to pick up votes, the Muslim vote is much bigger than the Jewish one, and we're seeing that in real time in the consequences of what communities are being lifted up and what are being pushed down. And I think you're totally right. I spoke to Dov Foreman yesterday, who's a really great Jewish commentator, and he's been banging the drum about this for a long time, and he said Jews are the canary in the coal mine. Once their freedoms are being curtailed, then we are next. Everyone else is next.
Well, I've got a really good interview later on the final hour of the show. Brooke Goldstein's an American human rights lawyer, and she wrote an incredible book, End Jew Hatred, and she's very, very outspoken about what has happened and is coming for the Jewish population, not just across the world, but in this country. Can I just say... it's so much responsibility. Good morning, Jeremy and Samara. I love the both of you. Deborah, this is the start of a worrying moment. The Jewish community is feeling fear and pressure, and that concern extends to all of us. We're all vulnerable in times like these. Please stay vigilant. Louise in Ipswich. During the statement about the ambulance torching, did you see all the Muslim MPs condemning it? No, me neither. She said only one single Muslim MP attended the statement, which sums it up.
Interesting. Rupert Lowe also didn't make a comment. Weird. Interesting, that.
No comment on him. Starmer, for all the people, just no comment. Starmer should be saying an attack on the Jewish community is an attack on my wife. The man's a coward. I get that. I don't, you know, to me, there has to be a reason. If you are simply allowing that sort of anti-Semitism to continue because you're frightened of the response of another part of our community, then you are not putting your country first, as you promised, Keir Starmer. You're not putting your people first. We can talk about defence in a separate conversation. You are putting your political survival first. And that is exactly the opposite to what he said, which again proves the guy's a liar. I just found out Lord John Mann, actually, is the government's anti-Semitism czar. We had him on the show before. Why don't we try and get a comment for him later on and see if we can find out? Because I don't think this government's doing enough, but I don't think previous governments are doing enough. You'll remember the Labour Party with Corbyn had a massive anti-Semitism problem.
Well, just FYI, I remember we had Lord
John... I thought she was going to say something else then.
we had Lord John Mann on after the Manchester synagogue attack, and I remember him getting into a big biff with one of the hosts, and he didn't even, I think something like he couldn't condemn something or other. It was just ridiculous. He's very spineless, that man. My memory is not jogged, but he's not really a presence. I think it's a very symbolic gesture of the government to have that. But I mean, it's out of control now. You know, all these things like the Al-Quds Day protest, those are all just one hair away from what we saw yesterday, and we're so lucky that no one died. But majority of the people out on the streets were telling me, no, I feel much safer in Israel, than where I'm getting bombs rained down on me by Iran, than I do on the streets of London. And I think we've got a serious problem
Alicia,
there, if
who
that's the
works
case.
on the show, is a Jewish girl, and yesterday was really fascinating working with her, because I was so appalled about this Amnesty thing. And you know, she said to me something that I thought was even more shocking. We've sort of got used to that sort of stuff on our community. Well, I don't care if they drag me out this studio. I'm not going to stop saying what needs to be said. Andrew, good morning.
Morning, Jezza. When will this diversity nonsense end? I'm a white, middle-aged, straight man, and the UK absolutely hates me. I moved to Saudi because I have no longer a career path in the industry I worked in London for 20 years, yet I'm loved over here as I'm helping the country to improve. I wish I could be doing it back home, but my next roll up the chain was filled by somebody that ticked several diversity boxes and everyone knew it was morally wrong. Diversity has done nothing for the UK except cause friction. Khan taking over Trafalgar Square with the Muslims praying was purely to antagonise the British and nothing else, so he could then play the Islamic hatred card, knowing he can get whatever he wants. Had enough, Jeremy. Andrew from Saudi Arabia.
You can hear it in his voice, and I was watching the response to not just the ambulance stuff, but that Muslim prayer thing. And let's make the point, because we have to, if we're going to broadcast properly, there are other religions that have those sorts of things. However, I do think, and we have to be careful with language because people go the other way, I do think we're at a very seminal moment in this country. I'm all for genuinely free speech and equality, but diversity. Right? Religion. We've gone the other way, Samara. We've gone to a point where take crime. The victim doesn't seem to be treated even as well as the perpetrator of the crime. Certain religions, creeds, colours, castes are seemingly treated better than others. Seemingly, if you work hard and pay your tax, I'm going to get on my soapbox, Big M, right? And you live your life correctly, Samara, and you don't break the law, you're 28th in the queue behind people who can break into our country and be given more. It's like the balance is all fundamentally wrong. That's what I think, massively.
Totally. I think that we're totally intolerant to the intolerant, and it's a big issue. And I think it's almost the British condition, if you don't mind me saying this as an Australian, because I think that
Why don't you sort of back to your own country then if you're going to be like that? I'll come with you.
I think we've got it all wrong, and we're just sort of facing the consequences now. Countries like America do a lot of things wrong, but I think they do immigration in some sort of way right, because they have a banner that everyone can get behind. You are an American. This is our value system. Yes, you come from this place, but let's all be cohesive. And unfortunately, because of the way that we've been trying to pander to every single community, we're trying to please everybody and pleasing no one. And it's a big issue.
But that sums up Starmer.
And his leadership, yes.
I mean, I'm happy to say this. Some people in this building will disagree with it. There is a massive difference between legal and illegal migration. Some of our friends don't like what I'm going to say. I know many people. Start with our makeup artists who came from Poland and built the most amazingly successful business and worked like you wouldn't believe. There are plenty of people who came to this country legally, embrace this country, speak our language, pay taxes and employ people, like the guy I always say that picks me up at night. They are more infuriated about people breaking into our country and doing it wrong. And it is not far right, it is not wrong to call that out. If you are saying to the indigenous population, do you know what? Thanks for living your life correctly, but you can do one because I'm going to make sure that I apparently care for everybody else. Doesn't work. Anna, good morning.
Good morning, Jez. Anna, sorry. Jez, the Jews don't rape our children. The Jews don't sexually assault our women. The Jews don't stab, don't take drugs. The Jews do not congregate in our capital city every weekend and bring it to a standstill with their vile anti-Semitic slurs. The Jews have done nothing but benefit our country. They are wonderful people. And I am disgusted at the way that the government, Labour, probably alongside with Polanski and his loonies, treat our Israeli cousins. As far as I'm concerned, they are very, very welcome in this country and should be honoured as the delightful citizens they are.
I said yesterday, Samara, just looking at the front page of the Daily Telegraph, the oldest hatred is rising again. I see an Orthodox Jewish man there pictured with detectives.
It's not even shocking anymore, though.
I was at an airport the other day, and there's an Orthodox Jewish man with his wife. I told the story on the show yesterday. I literally found myself going up and saying, I'm sorry.
Oh, God.
No, I'm sorry for the way that this... to me, it's abhorrent. Really is.
Yes, but I'm so sick of these sort of empty platitudes and headlines. And, you know, Wes Streeting, all he could come and offer, I saw him yesterday at the
Did he speak to you on camera? Of course he didn't.
Of course he didn't, no. But he offered them 4 free ambulances. Sorry, that is genuinely putting a Band-Aid over a bullet hole. We need proper action on anti-Semitism.
I thought we didn't have any ambulances. Yeah, do something about the anti-Semites. Just very quickly, that art exhibition in Kent showing Jews eating babies has been reported by hundreds of people. It's been deemed not abusive or insulting by the police. Do they know what happened on October the 7th to those babies? Do they want me to lay it out for them? I mean, what people conflate. I get really angry. There's much about Netanyahu. There's much about Israel sometimes that I don't agree with, as with America. But that should not rain down, excuse the pun, on 250,000 Jews who have been our brothers and our sisters for years, and I think it's deplorable, and I'll forever keep saying it.
So here's the issue here. I think that, you know, we can go down the whole free speech, freedom of expression thing with this horrific gallery representation, but unfortunately, the way that the government's been conducting themselves with having this 2-tier justice, locking up Lucy Connolly for incitement to violence, what about drawing pictures showing Jews eating babies? I'm pretty sure that's incitement to violence too. So it's like, pick a lane. We can either have full freedom of speech and expression, or we can actually condemn this sort of thing. And I think, you know, I'm actually talking to the woman who exposed this later today, and I'll have that for your show. But she's going to tell me just what happened, because she was actively chased out of that exhibition, and it was really horrific stuff. So I don't think something like this should be shown given the political climate, but I think it's a divisive one.
There's a real line between free speech and poison, and strangely our government will pick up the poison where it doesn't seem to be as poisonous and ignore the rest. Love to get your involvement this morning. 0344 499 1000. The amazing Samara Gill. In fact, Richie says a very, 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 very good morning to the beautiful Samara and your ageing sidekick.
Oh, hello, Richie. Very nice to hear from you.
Hold on, ageing sidekick, you cheeky git. There's life in the old dog yet. Right, 0344 499 1000. That's the anti-Semitism. Listen, that attack in Golders Green was appalling. We love your thoughts on that. We're coming back with, the bacon muncher. Honestly, are you anti-net zero? Please, God, you are. Morning, Ryan.
Good morning, Samara. I didn't realise it was Bring Your Grandad to Work Day. Anyway, the situation going on in Golders Green is an absolute disgrace, and I'm just waiting for one of our oh-so-imaginative leaders to come up with how Muslims are the real victim in all this, because that's what's going to happen. Anyway, cheers.
I was sat in the tent and he was showing me through photos of his phone, scrolling through. This was barbaric, horrific stuff. Blokes going through walls in vehicles and then jumping out and shooting everyone. His WhatsApp picture was him with a mask on, with a gun like that.
You're in a tent with this guy?
I'm in a tent with this guy, and actually he's just showing me this stuff. I'm just thinking, this is not the kind of bloke you want to be coming to the UK.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back, 6:25. It's breakfast, and I'm incredibly delighted to be joined by the incredible Samara Gill. In fact, it's Bring Your Grandad to Work Day, said the last caller.
Yeah, it's great to be here.
Do I look like your granddad?
That's why I love the Talk audience, you know. They just they tell it like it is. It's fantastic.
Samara was down at Golders Green yesterday after that unbelievably dreadful anti-Semitic attack on those 4 ambulances. Loads of that across the day. Golders Green arson, this is from Bill in Cheshire. If a mosque had been set afire, we would have had live TV crews there all night. The BBC would have had about 50 reporters on scene, and the blame would have been on the IDF and Trump. The BBC and its lefty journos are far more interested in Palestine protesters outside a bakery. Couldn't agree more. Natasha, the reason Jews feel safer in Israel than the UK is because they know the government has their back. Here we all feel the government couldn't give a toss about us. Only one religious group they want votes from. That's Natasha, very true. We're going to talk being anti-net zero in a minute, because Ed Miliband's a nightmare. But the front of the Sun, I've got to do this. So Barmy Beeb bans Bob. Bob Geldof was an absolute genius. I once saw him live, and he'd get 3 people that he'd never met genuinely. Well, I did say Monkhouse. What did I say? I said Bob Geldof. That's my age, you see. Through the glass, right, they just look at me occasionally and go, oh, God, he's losing the will to live. All right, Grandad. Jeez, that was my Grandad moment. Bob Monkhouse, live. Unbelievable, right?
Yes.
This is how barking mad the BBC are. Shut up, you lot. You're all fine. An episode of BBC's The Repair Shop. Isn't the bloke that used to do that in trouble? He is, isn't he? Was pulled after a TV production worker got offended by a sexist Bob Monkhouse gag. Experts... hope to restore the late comics volumes of handwritten joke books dating from the 60s, but bosses said it sort of has changed. This is a complaint against decency. Do you want to hear a Bob Monk? We did it earlier. I can still enjoy sex at 74. I live at number 76, so it's no distance, right? I think that's really funny.
Speaking of granddads, yeah, I mean, that's great.
I don't have people living that near to me. Carl, good morning.
Morning, Jeremy. Morning, Samara. Really, really... wokery has gone mad. I mean, it's even hit the repair shop. I don't know if anyone's read the piece in the Sun today, but it's a great little piece about the repair shop, and they're waiting to repair Bob Monkhouse's joke books. You can imagine, I've heard about his joke books. Supposed to have just thousands of jokes written in loads of books, and somebody was giving them. Anyway, cut a long story short, somebody actually looked through them from one of the companies that's from BBC, and he's probably obviously straight out of university, joined the BBC, ain't got no life skills at all, just green hair probably, and next minute he don't like one of the jokes in the book, said it was sexist. We all know that Bob Monkhouse in the 60s and 70s, sexist jokes was a thing, but no, one joke, didn't like it, whole thing scrapped.
So I'm going to basically tell jokes all morning from Bob Monkhouse, because I think he was an absolute legend. With my wife, it was sex, sex, sex. Yes, you're right.
Well,
3 times in 55 years. Bob, I don't care. What is wrong with the world?
What's interesting is that actually the BBC is going to get a new Tim Davies as well. They've actually finally chosen a successor to him from that shambolic sort of reign. And it's this guy called Matt Britton.
Yeah.
And he's a former Google executive. He's got no TV experience or anything like that. He'll definitely be taking a pay cut, stepping down. So that's going to be who's dictating whatever the nation's sort of thinking, I guess, or at least 10 years ago that would have been the case. So I think it's interesting. Is he going to cut all this flab off from the BBC? Is he going to get the wokeness out?
No.
You don't think
I think
so?
they are absolutely... genuinely, listen, there's about as much chance as me ever working for the BBC as there is of me being the President of the United States, right? I think it is nothing short of a disgrace. I think our state broadcaster should be straight down the middle. It isn't. A station like this, of course, acknowledges we're right-leaning. At least we're honest about that. So much of what the BBC to me
We're not
does...
funded by the government, though. We're
Precisely,
privately funded,
you survive
so...
entirely on people that listen to you. But I just don't see that somebody or an organisation that is funded by the British public should be allowed to continue, right, doing what it does. You can see it. It's infiltrated, but he's right. They're all tree huggers and they all eat couscous, which just sets me complete. Don't get me on couscous. 0344 499 1000. Jez, say it what it is. It was a terrorist attack yesterday. Vinny, I actually sort of agree with you. So can you put paintings on display that offend Jews, but you can't tell a Bob Monkhouse joke? We're finished. That's it. I'm leaving, says David. I agree. Let's talk about the other main news story today. Ed Miliband is going to be accused of being a net zero fantasist by Kemi Badenoch. She'll use an opposition motion today to force... She wants to force the government to unblock drilling in the North Sea. Yesterday, Offshore Energies UK, slightly important, said that Britain urgently needs to produce its own oil and gas. You've come here for early breakfast, so you're going to get the Jeremy Kyle analogy. I'm 120 billion skint. I owe that, right? I can't even afford the interest on that. But in my garden, right, unbelievably, I find underneath the earth all this gold. But I don't want to dig it up and pay off my debts because I might upset the neighbours. They're going to put their hands over the fence and take the gold, and I might buy it off them. It's barking bloody mad. We are skint as we are. I'm not even talking about environmental issues here. I'm talking about common sense resource. And when people say to me, oh, are you talking about drilling? Yeah, I am. Drilling and fracking. And this, and let me tell you, I'm very proud to tell you that I got my 6-year-old grandson to go into school and say, drill, baby, drill.
I love that. Can I add to
man.
that analogy?
Yeah.
It's almost as if, as well, you've got a house full of starving children that can barely afford to eat and are freezing cold, and you still refuse not to dig up the gold bars.
Yeah.
That is what it's like. This nation is actually taking its people for a ride with this net zero crap.
And he's mad, by the way. Nobody, he won't listen to anybody. I mean, the essential thing is that when the Labour Party lose the next election, and whatever cohort comes in, it doesn't matter, right? This will be reversed. It's not even about the environment. It's basic common sense. What's he going to do in response to this today? Now, Ed Miliband's going to pledge heat pumps and solar panels for all new homes.
He is, and just a couple days ago it was revealed that he spent more than £800,000 on his trip to COP to discuss all this. So he sent 73 delegates over from his net zero department to Brazil last year, and the plane travel alone cost the public £210,000.
Somebody once said to me this: if you get this net zero madness, right, what happens when you get there? I mean, what essentially happens? Does you get a medal or something? I mean, the rest of the world is concentrating. I mean, I just think if your country's skint, if your country's suffering as our country is in terms of we don't have a defence system, we don't spend enough of our GDP on... Look at that HMS whatever's just arrived in Cyprus. We're a joke internationally. Our public services are crumbling because we spend... What is it? 407 billion a year on welfare. It's wrong. Everything's wrong.
The thing is, I think it's going to plummet us totally kind of almost into the third world. I know that's very aggrandizing, but, you hear Rachel Reeves pledge just a couple days ago that we're going to go and bring AI into the future, and that's going to be what it's about. How the hell are we going to do that if our energy costs are the highest in the world? What you need for that and what you need for a flourishing economy is energy. It's not that hard. I mean, Donald Trump understands this so well, even though he's made a couple missteps along the way.
Slight missteps along
the way, but, he does actually get that you need to frack, you need to drill. We've got so many resources. We are a rich country, but we're acting like a poor one, and I just hope that Ed Miliband's brought to task.
Well, I was worried you came in a green dress. I thought you were going to come out for Zach Polanski's party today.
I would never. Only maybe if he could enlarge my boobs, but that's...
Well, it worked for Big Mark. Ask him. Can I just say, biggest man boobs in the world? I'm joking. Listen, can I just give you a little analogy here, right? Ed Miliband, this is the man that will spend 800 billion, Samara, skinting this country. This is him teaching kids about net zero. This is fascinatingly bad.
I'm trying to get lots of new ways that we can power our country, like solar power, wind power, What's good about that is it's good for tackling climate change because you're not burning fossil fuels, which is what helps cause climate change, but also you can get cheaper energy bills for people. Yeah. So you're trying to do both of those things together. You're trying to make things better now, and you're trying to protect against climate change.
How dare he stress children out like that? I was part of that generation where they were like, the world's going to sink by 2025.
Did they tell you that
yes,
at school? In Australia?
Yes. And it's just, we wonder why there's high levels of anxiety, depression among children. They're constantly being told Palestine, net zero. I mean, that audio that we just played, he was in a school saying that.
I wouldn't let him in a school. I think he's dangerous. And loads of you agree. Miliband is a dangerous obsessive. His life is dedicated to saving our country from the fossil fuel poison. He listens to no one who disagrees. He has insane beliefs. He needs to be stopped. Yeah, this is interesting. What hold does he have over Starmer? Liz in Norfolk, you're so right. Do you remember when all that, they thought Starmer was going to fall? Miliband's definitely calling the shots. Let's not forget, this man was horrific as the Labour Party leader. He lost an election. Do you remember the tombstone? With his ideas of his 15 plans. It was engraved on a tombstone, and they had great fun with that. Margaret says, Ed Miliband, what heating he has at his house? Would it be a heat pump or a gas boiler? Mike from Bryn Mawr, lovely. Morning, Jazz. Morning, Jazz, is it? I think Ed Bacon Boy Millipede is as useless as a chocolate fireguard, but even if we drilled in the North Sea for oil and gas, it would be sold on the open market as Thatcher sold the licences to the oil companies. Good morning, JK. This is from Sean in Gloucester. Every day, Stalin and the Labour Party do something that makes me even more furious. Not only the lies, the hypocrisy, the sleaze, the ideology, all harming the economy and ruining the country, but Stalin is actually endangering us. I agree past governments started the demise of our armed forces. It's been supercharged under Stalin. Added to that, he will not make a decision and stick to it. He did this and has a knack of getting everything wrong. Rayner or Miller Pratt will be even worse, though. I think this country's finished. I mean, that's a miserable thought, but I understand why people feel like this.
I think we've got a real level of incompetence here, and I just, this new proposal, new homes will be built with solar panels and heat pumps.
They never build any homes anyway. What's that all about?
Well, it says, plug-in solar will be in shops within months for existing homeowners. Oh, great. I mean, they announced that there's going to be, a reduction in our energy bills for 3 months. How's that going to work out? They didn't quite take the conflict in Iran into mind. I mean, we've got obviously 1.5 days of energy, I guess, reserve, they're saying, and that's also
we are
to do
screwed,
with gas.
aren't we, in this country? Let's be perfectly honest. It's not good, is it?
I think people like Ed Miliband should be brought in front of courts to actually explain the logic behind their net zero insanity. And I say insanity because I think it is.
And I'll tell you somebody else who needs to be found. He needs to be outed. Jürgen. The man that runs Great British Energy. Oh. Where is Jürgen? How much does he earn? Does he have an office? Does he have any... Nobody's seen Jürgen. Great British Energy, my great plan. What is Great British Energy? Is it a company? Does it create energy? What does it do? The man's on 200 and something grand a year, Jürgen. Nobody's ever heard of Jürgen. What did you say? Let's do we're going to have a Jürgen, not Jürgen Klopp. This was a... Honestly, you're more likely to see a squirrel vaping in the United Kingdom, more of that later, than you are to see Jürgen, who's head of GB Energy. But we have a clip. This is Jürgen, apparently.
It will help bring energy prices down.
When?
Well, it's a matter for government and policy to decide.
But as the boss of this, and as someone who is driving forward the ambition of the government, you surely have an idea in your head of when that central pledge to the people of reducing their bills by £300 will come into action.
It is not in the remit of Great British Energy to work out exactly how that energy costing gets through to the consumer.
So what is your remit? Who are you? Why do you look like you're in rehab? And why have we heard nothing from you in 18 months? Net zero is madness, OK? Net zero. I understand people want to save the climate. I personally think there are more important things to do right now. Samara Gill is doing a fantastic job. She's on the Australian lager. It's 20 to 7 in the morning. She's reviewing the papers. We've got Kenzie Schofield and more Bob Monkhouse gags on the day that the BBC has banned Bob Monkhouse. Just basically, they think his jokes are offensive. So we're going to continue telling them. Let's pull another one out. I'm not saying my wife's a bad cook, but the Eustace cow uses a smoke alarm as a timer. Brilliant. Morning, Sean.
Morning, Samara, and whatever his name is. Sean of Cheshire. Just thought I haven't commented for a few days. So just heard you earlier, Jez, when you're saying about new solar panels to be on all new houses and heat pumps. I can actually remember Gordon Brown trying to pass a law back in whenever it was, 2009. He said that all new houses will have solar panels. I haven't seen that happen yet. I've seen some occasionally, considering the amount of houses we've had built. How does he pass? Did he actually pass that law in the end or not? Because he definitely said he was going to, but it looks like it was an optional law that you didn't really have to do anything about. Much like when politicians and parties have flagship new laws that are exactly the same as the old law, just with a slightly different name. Keep up the good work and find out what other depressing things that Miliband has come out with. I look forward to the daily depression from Miliband and Labour every day.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back, 18 minutes to 7. I'm loving this morning. It's Tuesday. If you're waking up, this is the home of common sense. It's the home of Alarm Clock Britain. Samara Gill, the legend that is Samara Gill, on breakfast this morning. You're waking up to the news that Ed Miliband, the net zero fantasist, doesn't give a toss about listening to anybody. Kemi Badenoch today saying we should drill. Most of the United Kingdom say, drill in the North Sea. Yesterday, Offshore Energies UK, the people that do all this said, drill. It's ours. No, he's not doing it. He's going to make sure that all heat pumps and solar panels are all over all new houses. Yesterday, of course, that horrific anti-Semitic attack, I can't say that word today, in Golders Green. Home Secretary Shabana Mahmood seems to be talking quite a lot recently. He says it's outrageous and it's on the rise. We'll do something about it, and if you are interested, obviously we've had I'm going to bomb the Straits of Hormuz from Trump. Last night a ceasefire, I'm not sure. We'll keep you updated. What is for sure is that HMS Dragon Your Feet, our only ship, finally got to Cyprus yesterday, 3 weeks after it all started, and about 20 minutes after Donald Trump said it was a ceasefire, which is extraordinary. By the way, you're loving the fact that you're hating the fact that Bob Geldof's been banned by the BBC. My favourite... Have I said Geldof again? I'm doing it deliberately now. My favourite Bob Monkhouse joke. I was lying naked on top of my hotel bed when the chambermaid walked in. Eventually. Brilliant, fantastic, keep them coming. Right, Samara, this is for you.
I'm going to HR about that.
Morning, JK, great show. This will make you smile. Page 2 of The Sun. A trans woman has the top job at the Endometriosis Society. This just made me laugh out loud. An MP and a top novelist has slammed an endometriosis charity for appointing a trans woman as its representative. Steph Richards, who was born male, has been chosen as the Parliamentary Engagement Officer for Endometriosis South Coast. Endometriosis is a horrible disease that can cause women not to be able to have children. And sorry, just as I'm not... I mean, please, you're a woman. respond. That's ridiculous, isn't it?
It's horrific because it's something I'm not going to get into too much detail on breakfast, but it's something that's really to do with being a woman. Let's just say that's what endometriosis is. You kind of have to have the parts to understand. And I actually, we can laugh about it, but it's really serious. It's a very, very painful thing to have.
Yep.
A lot of women experience it.
I have a family member who has it, which is, this story is appalling.
Many women don't even know that they have it because of how little it's been sort of researched and everything, because most of the research goes into the male sort of body. So I think that it's dark days, and this is a governmental appointment, so it shows just how rotten it is still. Even though we think that we've kind of backtracked on the whole woke movement, it's still rife within the public service, and only bad things can come of this, in my opinion. I mean, what does he know about endometriosis? He's never experienced it. He would have never experienced it because he is a man.
Mate, I couldn't put it better. 7:470344491000, just to keep us in the light-hearted mood. We've got Bob Monkhouse. There is a war raging. That's what we have. Light and shade on the home of common sense. A squirrel has been filmed in Brixton in a London park smoking a vape. I mean, this is extraordinary footage. There is the squirrel, if you're tuning in. It's the strawberry flavour, and underneath the trees...
Of course it's Brixton.
Well, he's having a vape. Look, do they give them out now? I mean, honestly, this is extraordinary. Perched on a wooden fence in South London, handling an e-cigarette between his paws and holding it up to its mouth. We had a bit of a meeting this morning before we came on air about how we could sort of throw this out to the public. All I can say is that Damien completely and utterly destroyed any chance of me asking any of you anything. Extraordinary human being, extraordinary stories.
Apparently they thought there was a red pepper at first, so they thought it was a giant...
red pepper?
They thought that it was a giant red pepper, and then a social worker got involved because she...
Really?
Yes.
Oh,
because she was
worker.
Concerned about the squirrel's safety.
Are you winding me up?
No, I'm not.
A social worker got involved because they were concerned about a squirrel's safety because it's found a vape on the floor. What's happened to the world? In my day, squirrels used to play with their nuts. What's happened? It's all gone wrong.
It said, the social worker said to the Express, I was so shocked, I was so concerned. I thought several tokes of the vape might make him sick and he might have to be hospitalised.
That's a social worker.
Yes, so, yes, she said she couldn't believe her eyes. She watched him for a few minutes. So clearly, the squirrel's well-being is taken into consideration. I mean, meanwhile, we've got some really egregious stuff happening in parks across London. But I'm glad that's where the social workers...
Let's not worry about stabbings or drug deals or kids drinking alcohol they shouldn't. Let's worry about squirrels sucking on vapes. Bob Monkhouse jokes coming up. See, I got it right. Let's cross to America. This is brilliant. We do this every single morning because we love her. And she loves certain people. I don't think she loves me anymore. Kinsey Schofield, a very good morning to you.
Why would you say that?
You don't message me, you don't call, you just don't spend any time on me anymore. I'm needy.
I'm trying to be respectful of your small children, okay? You were on daddy duty over the weekend because your wife took her girls' trip. I'm not going to bother you during that time.
I needed bothering. 6 children and 2 grandchildren. I almost felt like when I was taking them out, you two, for the weekend, it was like a living leash, right? And I tried so hard to do everything so perfectly, and I went 50 yards to buy ice creams, right? And I came back and one had grazed their knee, another had been hit in the face, one was crying because sand was up their backside. Honestly, I actually have to publicly say, I don't know how, honestly, I mean, I nearly went to rehab Sunday night. I literally... extraordinary. And how do women... honestly, that's a sexist comment. How do you feel, by the way, from an American perspective, that this country is so mad that we've given a transgender woman as the head of the Endometriosis Society, a governmental appointment, Kinsey Schofield?
Keir Starmer is sounding a lot like Joe Biden these days.
Sounding...
Under the Biden administration, we did the exact same thing.
Do you remember that story, Samara? The guy that was standing with... I hope I get this right, Kamala Harris, Tim Walz. Didn't he put...
Tampons. That's what his...
Tampons in the boys' rooms.
That is what his tagline was from the Trump administration. He put tampons, correct me if I'm wrong, Kinsey, but he put tampons in the male bathrooms.
He did. Tampon Tim, God love him.
Why, sorry, you two very successful ladies.
Now.
Why would you put tampons in a male toilet?
Because you're pandering for votes. I mean, he was clearly trying to pander to a certain demographic, and he wanted the liberal vote.
It's lovely to see you. Really lovely to see you. Fantastic. What should we start with? There's a story this morning. I can't let Andrew Mountbatten Windsor off the hook. He's got a mobile caravan at the back of his new house. Have you seen this picture? He's put an old mobile caravan. What's he gonna have? Who's he having round? Is there not enough space? This is brilliant.
It is. It's. I mean, we should give him some credit. At least he's housing the help. This is for the people that are working for him, because that his home is no longer big enough to hold everyone. So he's giving them a mobile home. What I thought was the wildest aspect of this story is they're carrying in all these boxes as they're moving him into Sandringham, and they all say HRH.
True, I
Let
saw
it
this.
go.
Let it go. Let it go. What was that from?
From Frozen.
I see.
You should know this, 6 kids.
Balamori. What's the other thing? Pokemon.
Oh, Pokemon's the big deal over here. We can't get cards.
I've got plenty of Why am I even having this discussion? This is a news channel. I'm talking about bloody Pokemon cards at 10 to 7 in the morning. I tell you, one of the biggest gripes, I mean, you'd probably share this, both of you, but one of the biggest gripes that I hear from people about Andrew is, apart from the lack of contrition, because he's not one of those people, is, and the HRH on the boxes is absolutely him down to a T, is that actually people go, hold on a minute, I'm really struggling, and he's still got a chef and a valet. He might have him in a mobile home, but how is that? How is that punishment, a lot of people are saying, right?
I know. I've got a photographer friend who's camped outside Marsh Farm, where he's kind of... Farm?
It's almost as good as Gildoff.
Yeah. And he constantly sees dry cleaning vans going in and out, cleaning services. This man's living a life of luxury. He's absolutely in denial about what's happened to him and how his life has been destroyed in the public eye. I think that he's just enjoying sort of a life of bliss. I mean, he's not allowed to ride his horses. That's probably an issue, and I'm sure he's been slightly jaded, but I think he's
jaded because he can't ride his horse, and alarm clock Brits are already 3 hours into the day. I'm not having a go at you, I'm just making the point. That's the problem, isn't it, Kim? Is that he just isn't, he doesn't look like there's any understanding of what everybody else might think.
He doesn't, but I think that the reason he has such a cushy lifestyle still is because the king's afraid of what he might say or do. You know, Sarah Ferguson, they can't control. She's over here trying to clone corgis, but he can control his brother, and he can shut his brother up. And I'm sure that Andrew knows where the bodies are buried too, and if he wanted to take the royals down, he absolutely could. And there is a dirty book publisher out there that would give him the opportunity and the voice if it ensured that if he ensured that he could bring some dirt. So I think ultimately this is just the king trying to keep his brother satisfied just enough to shut up and stay under the radar.
I get that, but in effect she then could say, could you not, that the king is financing, harbouring and looking after a criminal suspect.
At this point, yes. While he's under investigation, you can say that, and it's not a great look. But we'll have to wait and see what they come up with. I don't know if he'll be fully prosecuted for this.
He can't be. Let me tell you what, and I know this for an absolute. I think you said it to me, so I'm going to take absolute credit for it. All he's got to do if he goes to court, do you know what he's got to do? All he's got to do for the whole thing to collapse like Paul Burrell is go, I told my brother. Doesn't need to. Doesn't need to.
The king has to be his witness, and the king can't be his own witness, and it's just a nightmare.
But you see, that's the point, isn't it, ladies? A nightmare for Andrew Mountbatten Windsor. To hard-working Brits, hard-working Americans is not a nightmare. It's a wonderful lifestyle. But yeah, he's been so pampered. Talking about denial. How can we do a part with you without mentioning the madam of denial, Meghan Sparkle, has announced that having lost the Netflix deal, nobody wants to do a podcast and no person wants to buy a jam because it's seedless. No, I didn't mean that. She's going to return to acting. Are we getting back into box 23 of Deal or No Deal? She'll make my golf trips to Flower Island more exciting.
I mean, I'm going to correct you here. It's like, this is just, what's in the water? Because we had Boris Johnson write that piece that was like, Harry, please come back this week. And now we have Eric Roberts, the failed actor of, he's the brother of Julia Roberts. God love him. I mean, he's just not to Julia's level. On a red carpet saying that Meghan needs to come back to acting. The world is ready for her. I don't know what Boris Johnson, obviously allergic to prophylactics, but I don't know what else he's got going on over there, because nobody in Britain wants him to return, and nobody in Hollywood want Harry and Meghan either. Jack Quaid is in this new movie with Meghan on Amazon, and E.T. thrust a microphone in his face and said, how was working with Meghan Markle? I've never seen a man spin so well in his life. He avoided that question like the plague, refused to acknowledge it, was like, well, actually, I star in that movie, and then he lists his co-stars, and it was like, it was the most fun. So a very unrealistic headline from the Daily Mail. We love them, but clickbait, clickbait, clickbait.
I completely agree, and very much like Andrew, a complete and utter inability to understand, sorry, how hated you are. Kinsey, it's amazing. We love having you. Thank you so much. Tomorrow morning at your place, 6:45. Don't be late. Lovely. Okay. Kinsey Schofield. We've only got a couple of minutes. I want you to stay all morning, but you're a busy woman. Just breaking news overnight, by the way. We should always keep people on Talk up to date. Iran has launched missile strikes on Tel Aviv just a day after President Donald Trump declared peace talks with the country and had said it had been good and constructive. Nobody knows quite what to believe at the moment. Is he... I mean, Iran has said Donald Trump blinked first. We know we're doing well, but God knows, horrific.
Iran's also calling these peace talks fake news. They're using they're using Trump's own vernacular on him, which is a really interesting move. I think Trump has underestimated how the Iranians can be. I think rule number one of war is know thy enemy, and I think that he saw a win in Venezuela, and I think it hasn't been the same playbook here, unfortunately. He might have been promising.
And he has to be careful ahead of those midterms, because he stood on no foreign wars, and he stood absolutely on making the local, the domestic economy better, and that's the struggle.
Totally.
Can we have you do this regularly, please?
Oh my gosh, I'd love to. This is a great start to my day, and then I'm going to hop on the streets and.
He's saying hop because I'm hopping a lot. Are you saying that? We've got very busy days, Samara and I, after this. I've got 3 more hours. She's off to have well, you're going to have us sort of go to the spa for a couple of hours.
Yeah, probably a glass of champagne, a cigarette. You know how it is.
Read a couple of Bob Monkhouse jokes. That'll upset a few people. We love you. Thank you very much indeed. The amazing Samara Gill back next week. Well, throughout the week, reporting and doing all sorts of stuff she does on breakfast. Almost 7 o'clock, the Deputy Leader of Reform UK, Richard Tice, finally back at work. Good Lord. He'll be on the show very soon, and we keep your calls coming, please. 0344 499 1000. Your text messages, as ever, to 87222. Start your message with the word talk. News at 7 is next.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
fancy returning to the front line as Foreign Secretary?
I am going to return. I am going to return.
To
the people from whence I came.
Hello, I'm Peter Mandelson, and I'm proud to serve as His Majesty's British Ambassador to the United States of America.
I feel a tremendous sense, a profound sense of sympathy for those people, those women who suffered as a result of his behaviour and his illegal criminal activities. And secondly, I regret very, very deeply indeed carrying on that association with him for far longer than I should have done.
The Ambassador has repeatedly expressed his deep regret for his association with him. He's right to do so. I have confidence in him, and he's playing an important role in the UK-US relationship.
Mandy's out 4 decades and 3 scandals, or 3 that we know about. Guess what? Number 10 knew all about it. They knew that he lived in Jeffrey Epstein's flat.
Mandelson resigned from the Labour Party late last night over the allegation of a $75,000 set of payments to him from Epstein while he was business secretary, $10,000 to his now husband, a photo of him in his pants. This isn't just bad form. There are strong arguments here for him to be facing investigation over misconduct in public office.
I knew of his association with Epstein, but had I known then what I know now, I'd have never appointed him.
Breaking news that Lord Mandelson, Peter Mandelson, has now been arrested. So Mandy and Andy have now both had their collars felt. This is the establishment, the British establishment on trial. Came to us around about 5 o'clock when we learned that we saw footage of Peter Mandelson being led out of his London home in very exclusive Regent's Park by 3 coppers.
Now we have all these allegations, we have all the documentation related to those allegations, which Downing Street is being forced to put out. The first tranche of it will be early next month.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Hey, very good morning to you, my friends. Just gone 7 o'clock. It's Tuesday, the 24th of March. You lucky people. This is the home of common sense, and it's the home of the Alarm Clock Brit, where you have your say on the news of the day. What are you waking up to? More net zero madness. The Tories want to force a motion saying, can you just start drilling, you idiot? We've got this great resource in the North Sea, Miliband. And what do you want to do? You want to today insist that heat pumps and solar panels should go in people's houses. Even the Offshore Energies UK Limited yesterday said it makes no damn sense. I'm not bothered about those people that go, we shouldn't do. Yes, we should. We're skint. There's a resource. Damn well use it. Love your thoughts on that. We'll do more on that. Appalling attack on those 4 Hatzolah ambulances in London yesterday, funded by the Jewish community, driven by the Jewish community, for the entire community. Oh, Shabana's been up this morning. Shabana Mahmood, definitely anti-Semitism is on the rise. Wes Streeting out yesterday. Well, do something about it then. Because any form of racism is abhorrent, but no, OK, let's be honest. You've got an anti-Muslim czar. What about an anti-Semitic czar? It is an absolute disgrace. On a slightly more light-hearted note, the BBC has decided to ban Bob Monkhouse jokes because apparently they're offensive. Whilst everything that's going on in the world, that's what the BBC are doing. I'm going to continue to tell those jokes throughout the morning because I think it shows that we've got a slightly light-hearted. Do you want another Bob Monkhouse joke? And my wife said, can my mother please come for the weekend? I said, why? And she said, because she's been on the bloody roof for the last 3 weeks. 0344 499 1000. Let's say a very good morning to Sean.
Morning, Jeremy. Sean from Grimsby. I listened to them politicians when I got home from work last night, all condemning these attacks on the Jewish community in London, and it's the same old guff every single time. Oh, Londoners condemn this. Oh, that's no place in our society. Oh, we say no. Well, how about instead of these words which you repeat every 5 minutes, how about you actually do something? Don't know, like, you know, ban all the hate marchers who shout about hating Jews every 5 minutes. And how about we start arresting people who drive around London in the car saying they're going to rape Jewish women and sentence them to, like, don't know, like 10 years. Well, maybe they'll think again, but we're not going to do anything because our government's just too cowardly. Great show, mate.
Got to say, I completely agree with him. 7:05. He's been away. He's important, but he's deigned us with his company this morning. The Deputy Leader of Reform. He's the head of everything. MP for the brilliant Boston and Skegness constituency. Richard Tice, good morning.
Good morning. I work 24/7, Jeremy, unlike some people who work 4 hours a day, 4 days a week. But there we are. Very good morning to you too.
How was the skiing? All right?
Everything's fantastic.
Yeah, I'm
thank
sure
you.
it is. Yeah.
There's a lot going on. We've got to push on and talk about the madness of Net Stupid Zero. I've been talking about it for 3 years plus, Jeremy. I started when I was presenting on Talk, and I was lambasted for it at the time. And you know, to hear the Tories say that we've got to drill Britain, drill. Let me just remind everybody, it was the Tories who introduced Net Stupid Zero. Never forgive, never forget the damage they've done to our jobs, to our economy and to our energy prices.
It doesn't make any sense, and you're damn right, all joking apart. You've been calling it Net Stupid Zero for years. I mean, I think we need to look at all sorts of parts of this argument. You've got a man who, I mean, he is he's obsessed about this. This is his bag. You're a businessman, a successful businessman. If you're 800 billion quid or whatever it is in debt, and you're going to spend even more on something that achieves what the rest of the world is getting on, I'm personally at 60 more interested about, I don't know, making sure that we can defend ourselves as a country with what's going on in the world, making sure, for example, that our public services that are overrun and creaking in all parts are better prepared to help people in this country. It's all about priorities. I think he, genuinely not making it personal, I think he's a very, very dangerous man, Ed Miliband.
He's actually more dangerous to the British economy than Rachel from accounts. His insistence on getting rid of fossil fuels and this sort of mad dash for clean power 2030, which is completely unachievable, and it's just making us all poorer at every single level. I mean, it is truly, truly dangerous. And when I just simply say, just remind everybody, gas prices in the United States are about a third of ours.
Yep.
Why do you think that is? Because they use their own domestic gas. We've got loads of it. We should be using all of it as much as we can. Every single last therm, every last barrel, every last drop of oil, it's our energy treasure. And if we use it ourselves, then actually you get a multiplier effect of jobs, of growth, and lower prices.
When you think about it from a business point of view, when you think about it from a fiscal point of view, it makes no sense. They always throw out, don't they, Richard? They always throw out the, you know, 70% of the country are worried about environmental issues. If you ask somebody a generic question, are you concerned about the environment? They go, yeah, probably. If you said to them, by the way, are you in favour, right, in favour of spending billions of pounds to achieve something that nobody else really cares about, to the point where it will completely and utterly bankrupt this country and screw you monthly or weekly financially? They go, absolutely not. It's the way the question's done. I don't understand. I mean, yesterday the Offshore Energies UK, massive organisation, said you need to drill. And I do get, to be fair, we have politicians from all parties on this show. I do get the frustration that you're saying from a reform point of view, because suddenly the Tories are saying, drill, baby, drill. They'll say, as they did yesterday, that they still granted oil and gas licences. You're saying that it started with Johnson and before that, and they were part of this problem. It's not just down to Starmer.
They are 120% part of this problem. They introduced more regulations. They introduced the windfall tax, the energy profits levy, up to 78%. They introduced Net Stupid Zero. It was Boris Johnson that said we wanted the UK to become the Saudi Arabia of wind, for heaven's sake. They are totally and utterly responsible. And then Miliband has doubled down on this stuff. And the idea that we're exposed to higher gas prices because of problems in the Middle East exporting gas from Qatar, when we're sitting on a decade's worth under the county of Lincolnshire alone, when we've got gas in that we could be drilling for in the gas field at Jackdaw and more besides. And I just remind everybody, last year in the North Sea, on the Norwegian side, they opened 49 new exploration and production wells. How many did we open and start? Zero.
But that, to me,
zero.
I know, and the point is, because his system won't, I'm worse than you, because his system won't work, we'll end up buying it from the bloody Norwegians at more cost, which will send people's bill. It just genuinely, there's no common sense in it, Richard. There is no common sense at all. It's interesting. He today, though, counters with, he's going to say that heat pumps and solar panels for all new homes is what his government's going to achieve. I'm rather cynical that they're going to build any houses whatsoever. But he is a dangerous human being, and it won't go away. Other big news story, that appalling attack which we broke yesterday of those 4 Hezbollah ambulances in Golders Green, funded by the Jewish community, driven voluntarily by the Jewish community. Suddenly the government's going, there's anti-Semitism. I'm going to ask you a really straight question in terms of Reform UK. I have my own view about how, well, I think all racism is abhorrent, and I'm sure you'd share that, but there seems to be a treatment of Jewish people in this country that is beyond the pale. It's disgusting. And we have a girl who works on this show who's Jewish, and she said to me, it was really sad yesterday, she said, we just sort of got used to it. Would a Reform government do something about anti-Semitism as aggressively as this government seems to do about Islamophobia, for example?
Absolutely, 100%. We're the people who called out these vile hate marches straight after October the 7th. And in terms of anti-Semitism, Jeremy, as we know, a fish rots from the top, from the head. And the truth is, when I look across the green benches at 400 MPs, my estimate is about 200 of them, give or take, are seriously anti-Semitic. That's where it starts. That's why this just sort of flows down. It's absolutely horrific. But the Labour Party is riddled, absolutely riddled. It is corrupt with anti-Semitism. And I know I get in a lot of trouble for it. And there are some very good people in the Labour Party who are working very hard against the scourge of anti-Semitism, but they are dumbed down by hundreds of Labour MPs who are just institutionally, in their bones and their blood, anti-Semitic. That's the bottom line.
Couple of comments as you're speaking. Always give it to you straight. Ian says, you two are missing the point. Net zero is necessary for your grandchildren, their children's children. In the Alps, the snow is melting and avalanches with rocks the size of mini buses come down. Wake up, you two.
Well, our alarms went very early this morning, Jeremy. The reality is the climate has changed for millions of years, and it will always change for millions of years. Anybody who thinks that humans can stop that climate change that's gone on for those millions of years, I would suggest take a just take a look at the real data. Look at the ice cores from Greenland and the like. Look, the reality is there's nothing environmentally friendly about covering 100 square miles of Lincolnshire, prime agricultural productive farmland, with Chinese solar panels.
I've got a better one for you. I've got a better one for you. Tim's supporting you. Brilliant. He says, morning, Jess. Morning, Richard. I'm actually watching the council, as we speak, fill potholes, and guess what they're using? Oil. Tarmac comes from refined oil, so we're now importing our bloody roads, he says. And that's a really salient point. That's exactly the point. Far better. It's not about, hug a tree. It's about what's going wrong with this country. Everything seems to be on the back foot. One of the most important assets, I guess, that we've got is there. Use it. Makes no sense. So much I want to talk about. There's some breaking news overnight, Richard. Iran has launched missile strikes on Tel Aviv just a day after President Donald Trump declared peace talks. The irony, of course, is that our only boat, HMS Dragging Your Feet, has finally arrived to defend Cyprus at the exact moment that Trump says there's going to be a peace talks, whether there is or not. Another thing I should put to you in Reform. This government's already announced that defence spending will get to 2.5% GDP, and it'll be beyond if they win the next election. One of the things for me personally was when I saw Sunak 2 days out the last election saying, we'll spend 3%. We have patently been failed by successive governments. This isn't all on Starmer. I know you got very upset yesterday at some committee. This is on the last 20 years, the cheap option. Now, you will say as a party, we're going to spend more on defence. Where are you getting the money from, Richard?
We've always said we'd spend more on defence. We were the only party in the general election to say we needed to get to 3% in 6 years. You get the money, Jeremy. For example, net zero, give or take, 30 billion a year. The OBR has agreed that actually Tice is right on that point. You don't need to pay voluntary interest on all the printed money, the quantitative easing reserves. That's another 15 to 20 billion a year. We've got tens and tens and tens of billions being wasted on welfare to people that we need in work. There is no shortage of money in order to pay for our defence. If we stop wasting money wherever we see it being wasted, whether it's at the council level or at the national level, then actually we've got the money to do what is necessary. And that, yes, this is a serious wake-up call. You can't have a bunch of nice-to-haves if you can't defend yourselves. And the Tories, yet again, are to blame for having not only cut defence spending to the bone, but also that which they did spend, they've spent it badly. That's the reality. And that's why we've ended up in a situation, we're spending 20% more on defence than our good friends across the Channel, the French. And yet they're getting much, much more bang for their bucks. They've got more ships, more equipment.
That's because we're giving them £500 million a year to sit and watch illegal migrants get into dinghies. That's a joke as well.
That is also a joke. And of course, that should stop. And they should be forced to stop the dinghies leaving. But coming back to the point, for the money that the French are spending on defence, they are getting much better value. And that just annoys me because we could do so much better. We should be promoting British defence industries, making our requirements and our procurement much smarter, much more efficient, much clearer, and we'd have much more kit. That's the reality, but we just haven't learned the lessons of the past.
I've known you for quite a while. Would you say that you've changed as your star politically has risen? Because you just spoke about yourself in the third person. You just said, back the OBR, Tice is right. This is slightly worrying, this third person thing.
I'm just teasing the OBR. I'm teasing the Climate Change Committee because, frankly, I have been banging on about this until I'm blue in the face for years and years. And it is sort of reassuring but galling to hear the Tories now say, oh, we've got to drill Britain drill. Well, where were they a few years ago when we should have been doing that?
Final question today. You'll love this. First time ever on this show. Guess who's on after the break? Your wife. I mean, that's extraordinary.
To be.
Oh, yes, to be, yes. Do we know when that is yet?
It's in the autumn, Jeremy.
Yeah, I know. I've got the invite. Right, this is a story that people will have missed. This is quite personal, but it is absolutely symptomatic, Richard, in my mind, of the madness of this government. Have you seen today an MP and a top novelist have slammed an endometriosis charity, the main endometriosis charity for the South Coast, Endometriosis, they have selected a trans woman to run the Endometriosis Society. Steph Richards, who was born male, has been chosen as the Parliamentary Engagement Officer. I've had women in their hundreds texting me going, how utterly disgraceful, a disease that is so painful, that causes such misery, and many women can't have children as a result of that, putting a trans person. And I know we on this show have a laugh sometimes, but to me, that is about... We're getting to the point like Tim Waltz, we were talking about it earlier, the one that stood with Kamala Harris and put, tampons into male toilets. What's gone wrong, Richard? This is madness, man, madness.
It actually beggars belief. You have to reread it to check it's not April Fool's Day.
Yeah.
I mean, nothing could be more inappropriate than this sort of trans appointment to deal with such a serious and painful issue. Surely it should be someone who actually understands it, possibly who's actually experienced the pain. Yeah. It just beggars belief. It's a symptom that Britain truly is broken at every level. It just it's so, at best disappointing, at worst just shocking.
And this next bit is literally off the top of our heads that Christian found, but it sounds funny. Don't know if you've seen the footage. A squirrel has been seen smoking a vape in a London park, and before you smile, this is absolutely true, mate. This sums up he knows what's coming. Footage shows the grey squirrel perched on a fence in Brixton, and honestly, please cut back to Richard because I want to see his face. That's an amusing video. a social worker complained to the Labour Council that she felt the squirrel would be traumatised and she was worried about the impact. In that park, I can't point fingers, but I suspect there are drug dealers and people carrying knives, and we're worried about a bleed. That's what's wrong with this country, mate. Those two last stories are farcical, but they need to be told, right?
I hope that video actually is AI generated. I hope it's not true.
It's not. It's real.
If it's real, then it is just, and the story you've just exposed there, it's just, it beggars belief. I despair talking about it, actually.
It's just nuts, isn't it, Richard?
It's nuts, Jeremy. Very good. You're on form on your 4 hours a day.
You're very... Listen, I worked yesterday from 2 a.m. until about 7 p.m. Why are you having a go at me, man? I did 19 hours yesterday.
I'm only teasing. You seem very thin-skinned this morning.
I tell you, I'll make you thin-skinned. We're going from the beast to the beauty. Thank you to Richard Tice. Isabel Oakeshott is next. Thank you, Richard Tice, Deputy Leader of Reform UK. 7:20, we're live across the UK. JK on Breakfast. Tracy, good morning.
Good morning, Jeremy. Endometriosis cost me a full hysterectomy. I'm now left with half a bowel and half a bladder. I was screaming from the age of 20 after having the Depra needle that things weren't right. Rolling in agony, nothing killed the pain, nothing. I ended up having an emergency hysterectomy, half a bowel gone and half a bladder. It took them 12 hours to give me the wrong HRT for 27 years. Finally, for the last year, I've been getting the right HRT. My life has been hell, and they put a man in charge because he's got a wig on. I'm disgusted.
Crown is facing its gravest test in decades, and the royalty from Talk is your front row seat. With royal reputations under pressure and probing questions about public trust, we unpack every twist and revelation with the biggest names in the business. From the throne room at Buckingham Palace to a mansion in Montecito, we follow every royal ripple. Never miss a moment of The Crown in crisis. Subscribe to the royalty from Talk on the app or wherever you get your podcasts.
The UK on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back, 7:25. You know, in the middle of the misery that is the world, the war in Iran, the appalling anti-Semitic attacks in London, the mad net zero, let's skint everybody, it is quite nice to have a little bit of lightheartedness, but this too is madness. This story has captured your imagination on the front of the Sun this morning. The story about Bob Monkhouse's joke book. Let me just tell you what happened. The Repair Shop is a programme for very old people like me, where people take things that are very old, like, you know, things that I was bought years ago, and get it repaired, and it's all very lovely, and King Charles likes it, although one of the presenters was biffed off. We won't go into that. Anyway, Bob Monkhouse's family took his joke book, his original joke book, to be repaired. They didn't want it read out, and the production worker was traumatised by some of the content, and so the BBC have banned it from production. I'm going to keep reading out Monkhouse jokes all morning, because somebody needs a bleeding laugh. I want to see my father die peacefully in his sleep. That's how I want to die, like he died, peacefully in his sleep, not screaming and terrified like his passengers. But do you know what? Everybody gets offended. Jez, you say that the squirrel story is nuts. I think it's a great topic. Now, Mervyn Wiltshire, you caused Big Mark and me to laugh, but other people won't know that. There used to be a chocolate bar called... Never mind. 03 what? Oh, you should definitely have a weekly call-in bit with Tice, like you do with Robert Jenrick. You could call it... The Tice is right. The Tice is right. Come on down. Isabel Oakshott, good morning.
Oh, good morning, Jeremy. I'm so glad that you did the long net zero conversation with him, not me, because that means that we don't have to do it, doesn't it?
Well, I was slightly worried. As his future wife, can I just bring this up with you without you being offended? He started talking about himself in the third person. I did raise it. He said, Tice, the OBR knows that Tice is right. Do you think we've got a bit of an issue here? Do you think we need to sort him out, Isabel?
There's probably only one person that can bring him down a peg or two, and that is me. A very important job, Jeremy. By the way, if I look a bit odd, it's because I'm broadcasting from... I'm sitting on a carpet and my laptop is balanced on a box of pasta.
Brilliant. Where are you, mate?
That is a reality of being at a slightly unexpected location. I'm in the French Alps, and as you know, we never stop working, so I've just had to make a little makeshift studio here, and I've put a little note outside the apartment door to my daughter saying, do not come in. But if suddenly a bleary-eyed teenager bursts in, apologies in advance.
Mate, you're amazing. Thank you so much. So you don't want to talk about net zero, no?
I know it's really important, but sometimes, maybe it's just because I hear Richard going on about it the whole time. Sometimes just get a bit bored by it.
I don't, to be honest with you, I don't understand the complete lack of common sense. Richard has called it out, and he's dead right. You're billions in debt. There's a reserve, there's a resource that's yours. Use it. I'll tell you what I would like to get your view on. We broke the story yesterday about the Hatzola bus ambulances in London, the 4 in Golders Green that were firebombed overnight. There was some appalling video footage we showed yesterday. A few platitudes from the Labour government. Starmer said deplorable. Sadiq Khan didn't mention anti-Semitism in his tweet yesterday. This morning, I think Shabana Mahmood saying that anti-Semitism is on the rise. If Richard Tice's favourite subject is net zero, the scourge of anti-Semitism is mine. I do not understand, Isabel, how I live in a country where blatant racism against my Jewish friends is not put in the same bracket or importance as racism against people of colour. I think it is an utter disgrace and a stain on our society. I really do.
Oh, 100%. And this has been allowed to mushroom quite steadily, hasn't it?
Yeah.
To a point of now just being a kind of toxic presence throughout our culture and in London in particular, but clearly not just London. I mean, you cast back to the days when Jeremy Corbyn was leader of the Labour Party, and this was just so blatant in the Labour Party, and Starmer made a big song and a dance, didn't he, about the Labour Party that he was going to lead being really different. And actually, listening to Richard there, he went further than I've ever heard any MP go about his parliamentary colleagues. I mean, I think he said a significant...
200, he said.
I mean, That's quite a big claim. I would expect some pushback from Labour on that today, but he will be basing that on what he observes and what he sees and just the kind of tenor of debate in and around Parliament about these matters. But while we're talking about Shabana Mahmood, I'd love to talk to you about the renegotiation of the amount of taxpayer money that goes to the French police, because apparently this is to do with trying to stop the boats. Apparently Shabana Mahmood, our so-called hard-as-nails Home Secretary, is trying to attach a few conditions, a few terms and conditions to the many, many hundreds of millions of pounds that gendarmes received.
Front page of the Times, I should point this out, that Isabel's talking about France migrants agreement held up by Mahmoud's tougher terms.
Well, I mean, sorry, but if this is her idea of tough, I'd like to introduce her to a wet blanket. If it was me in charge, I would be saying, not only are you not getting a penny more, I want a refund for the years that you have ripped us off, because we at Talk have observed how little the French police do, how tokenistic their efforts are, how they just jog behind groups of migrants as they head for the beaches. They know precisely when those boats are leaving, and all they do is put in place a few vehicles that are there purely symbolically, and a few first aiders perhaps to treat some of those that don't make it onto the boats, because the migrants have to wade into the water. It's really quite hard to clamber into those dinghies. They can't come too close to the beach, and all the French are doing is mopping up afterwards, and they allow the same people to have another go that didn't manage to get on the boats.
If you look at that footage for 1 sec, and we're playing it if you're watching on YouTube, I mean, Isabel is right. There's just reams of gendarmes. They're just watching these people paddle out 200-300 yards. They're standing either side of these people with their guns. We are paying the French 500 million. It does come back, Isabel, to... And it's really easy, isn't it, doing this to use... To get into a situation where you just throw lines out. Common sense. Where's the common sense in giving £500 million to a country who are doing absolutely nothing to help a crisis problem? Oh, they stab a boat after it's gone. I just don't understand how our government is so stupid that it allows this to happen.
Well, we are going to see these crossings escalate this year, I believe. And I don't believe it's just going to be from France, by the way. I think this is going into a whole different level this year. As the weather gets better, we've become very used to clocking the numbers that are coming over from the routes that we know. I believe that there are new routes that are being developed by the people smugglers. Keir Starmer has manifestly failed to smash the gangs. He's not smashed any gangs at all. The gangs are responding to pretty much unlimited demand to come and live in the UK. No wonder.
Unlimited demand. It's not a bloody holiday, is it? Honestly, how bad does that sound?
I mean, it sounds absolutely appalling, and it should have brought this government down and the previous government down many years ago. And yet somehow it seems to be factored in now. Is everybody okay with the fact that there are hundreds of undocumented males pouring into our country? Each and every one of them has a massive price tag for the British taxpayer attached. Of course, we can have compassion for those genuinely fleeing war and terror, but there's no war and terror in France. They have come across multiple safe countries to come to the UK because of the deal that they are given when they get here. And the chances of them being kicked out are absolutely statistically infinitesimal.
And let's add to what Isabel quite rightly says about that story in the front of the Times. You'll have heard that madness of about 10 days ago where the Home Office, again, the woman with strong words, Shabana Mahmood, wants to give £40,000 tax-free, which is about 56 grand, by the way. You'd have to earn 56 grand, twice the normal average. You can be given £40,000 if you arrive with your family to make sure that you leave. Somebody phoned me the other day, Isabel, and said that's like migrant monopoly. You know, get boat, arrive, do not pass go, collect your £40,000, be deported, come back and do it again. You know, I've sat here with you for 3 years, just wanting to pull what remaining hair I've got out of my head because I don't understand. You used a really great phrase there. Has it become normalised? Yeah, it's become normalised that you can come here and screw our system. It's become normalised that puts the British people on the back foot. It's become normalised that politician after politician after politician says, I'm going to do something, and then they either do not have the balls or the will or whatever. The criticism of reform, and I've asked that Richard this morning, is the critics will say, yeah, but you say you're going to sort this and you say you'll sort this and where's the money from? Richard explained about net zero. To me, this whole migrant thing is really, really simple. I've said it until I'm blue in the face. Put the Navy in the Channel, recommission a bloody great liner, don't allow anybody to set foot, process them with a crack team in 24 hours. If you're allowed in, I'll roll out the red carpet, and if not, you're going to a detention centre, which isn't a hotel, which might make you send a few messages back to your friends that we're not the soft touch we are. Why the hell can't that happen? Don't understand it.
Well, maybe because HMS Dragon has finally arrived somewhere else, and that's the only bit of Navy we've got. But fundamentally, of course, I agree with you. There is no point in a Navy if it can't even protect us for this. And you talked about migrant monopoly. This is not migrant monopoly. This is migrant win the lottery. To put those figures in context, the average annual earnings in the countries of origin of many of these migrants, if you look at a country like Eritrea or Chad or Sudan, you're pretty lucky if you earn $2,000 a year. $2,000 a year. So think about £40,000. What's that, about $53,000? We are giving them basically a lifetime of income. It is completely and utterly insane. And I wish I could stop saying it's got to stop. But no government seems to be capable of doing so.
Do you think if there is a reform government or a right-leaning government next time that there will... They talk about the will, Isabel, they talk about the blob. Can this problem very quickly, can it be solved?
It just absolutely has to be. If there is a reform government and they fail to stop the boats, then I think that all hell will break loose. That is sort of fundamental to reform's offer. They've always said they would stop the boats, and stop the boats they will do. I am fully confident of that, and they will do it in pretty short order if they are lucky enough to get elected.
Can I just say a massive thank you? This lady is an absolute stalwart. She might be in the Alps. She's literally sitting on a carpet. She's balanced a Zoom camera up on some pasture, and your daughter hasn't come in. We love you, Isabel. Thank you so much. And put that Tice in his place. He started talking about himself in the third person. Talk Breakfast is on 0344 499 1000. The BBC want to ban Bob Monkhouse. His family took his joke book into the repair shop. That dreadful programme for old people, and a production worker was offended by the jokes, and as a result, Bob Monkhouse has been banned. Morning, Pete.
Morning, Jezza. When I heard that thing about the repair shop this morning to repair Bob Monkhouse's box of jokes, well, I actually thought they were on about repairing the Labour Party manifesto, because that seems to be a box of jokes, doesn't it? But not a very funny one. Good morning, Jez. Have a nice day.
across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Busy morning on the show. Welcome to Talk Breakfast. It's the home of common sense and the home of alarm clock Brits. 0344 419 1000. Morning to Keith in Oswestry. The way to get the French to do their job, Jez, and stop the boats is to just tell them it will cancel all their fishing licences to fish in British waters. Could not agree more. Mikey says a huge reconditioned liner in the Channel, fast-track processing and the returning of migrants is 100% the correct approach. I agree wholeheartedly with you, Jez, but don't forget that some of these migrants don't like being at sea, so they might feel their human rights are being breached. Yeah, you're trying to wind me up, are you? I'm not interested in their human rights if they break into this country illegally. Good morning to Ron in Bridlington. If show goes well, we might get offered a summer season in Bridlington. Jez, these people live in tents in France, so why can't they be put in tents here? Oh, no. They would soon stop coming if we weren't being given all the freebies. Of course they would, Ron, because we're as soft as... And the reason that people are so angry nowadays is because, as we get on for ages, is that there is a cost of living crisis and this country is on its backside and people are struggling. So all of a sudden they go, hold on a minute, how's that fair? That's the silent majority for you. That's the whole point of why we keep doing this. Dan's in Kent. This is interesting. I live in a town that in the 15th century was a port. It's now 15 miles from the beach. There were no cars, boilers or power plants in King Henry's time, but the sea level was higher. Net zero is just a loony left taxation threat on ultimately the poorest. Quite right. And Brian in Spain, quite how Brian in Spain should be talking about the energy crisis, but he says, morning, Jez, so Miliamo wants solar panels and heat pumps. He must have had the Chinese salesman on the phone again. You enjoy the sun in Spain, Brian. 20 minutes to 8 o'clock. The story yesterday of the Hatzola ambulances being firebombed, captured. I mean, we started talking about it at 6 o'clock. We sent, as you know, Samara down to the scene, some amazing reporting. The BBC didn't say anything till about 10 o'clock, which about sums it up, and it's a story that is not going to go away. Anti-Semitism is on the rise, isn't it, Matt?
Morning, Jez. Mark from Chingford. Right, look, it all seems pretty clear to me what's going on. You've got to remember that Islam and the Muslim faith is anti-Semitic. Their book, the Quran, teaches them and tells them to hate Jews, kill non-believers, that we're all infidels. So the Labour government are pandering towards the Muslim vote because they know there's a vast majority of Muslims in this country now. So they're just going to do what they think is going to please the Muslims, hence why they're not doing anything about any of this anti-Semitism.
The best guest I could possibly have on next is Jake Wallace-Simmons, an author and columnist and the author of a brilliant book, is Israelophobia, the newest version of the oldest hatred and what to do about it. Jake, good morning to you. Jake, good morning. Brilliant. He's frozen. It's not working very well, is it? That happens occasionally. We'll just kind of get reconnection. Loads of you texting, by the way. Michael, our weak police and commissioners know they can't confront the aggressive hate marches because they are not robust enough and they will be swept aside. Yeah, many people quite rightly saying those hate marches that have been allowed to carry on in our streets week in, week out, preaching hatred, watching people burn the Israeli flag is doing nothing but encouraging the scourge of anti-Semitism. Let's try again. Jake Wallace-Simmons, a very good morning to you, my friend.
Good morning. Sorry, my connection's a bit unstable this morning.
Don't worry. When I was doing this story yesterday, Alicia, a Jewish girl, was producing the show, and the saddest thing I think I've heard was when I was talking to her off air. And she was less surprised and less appalled than any of us. She just had a rather resigned look on her face and said, that's what happens if you're Jewish. That's appalling, Jake, isn't it? I'm embarrassed for my country. I am. Oh, God, it's one of those mornings. All right. All right, listen, let's just leave Jake there and come back in just a tick. That happens. It's technology. It happens all the time. It's the joy of being live. I have not a problem. There was a report yesterday out. This isn't regurgitating a story. This is dealing with a story that has just sort of carried on. I don't know if you heard about this, but Lord Sewell, an ex-Tory MP, was tasked by our government, the Labour government, to come up with a race report to presumably tell us all that certain children from certain backgrounds ethnicity, religious difference, whatever, were having a really hard time. Ironically, when this report came back, it said quite categorically that white working class boys are being left behind as, well, let's be honest, the rush towards diversity and box ticking gathers pace, and a kid from a council estate or a working class background hasn't got much hope. I'm delighted now to be joined by Amanda Spielman, the former Chief Inspector of Ofsted. Amanda, a very good morning. Welcome to Talk Breakfast.
Good morning.
It struck me yesterday that this report was absolutely spot on and probably not in any which way what the Labour government was expecting or wanted to hear. Amanda, your response?
I agree. I think it's a really solid report. It follows the report that Tony Sewell did about 5 years ago for the Commission on Racial Equality and Disparities, which similarly pointed out some truths that I think were a bit unwelcome to a lot of people who make their living plugging difference and policies that are all about pushing difference.
It's really interesting to me that you know, a lot of people will use in the media those phrases DEI, and they'll talk about diversity and they'll talk about box ticking, and not everybody loves Donald Trump, but one thing that struck me when he stood for re-election was when he said, from now on in America, achieving something will be down to ability, it will be down to nous and hard work, it will not be down to the colour of your skin, your religious ethnicity, or what box you know, it ticks. So my question to you is DEI or wokery, whatever we want to talk in your mind, to blame for these white working class boys being left behind?
It's certainly a part of it. First of all, the report rightly points out the importance of children having stable married parents where possible. It doesn't mean that a lot of single mothers don't do a great job, but the chances of children, particularly boys, coming adrift are higher if you don't have two parents in a stable relationship. So policies that incentivize marriage are good. But then work is good for people and is particularly good for the young. So you need a high likelihood of a job. And bad tax policies like the recent changes to national insurance that have made it much more expensive to hire the young, bad energy policies like the rush to net zero, and bad DEI policies that incentivize employers to hire basically anybody except a white person.
Well, let's just concentrate on that. I'm not trying to make it just about that, but that's the headline. That is a symptomatic example, is it not, of in this country on so many fronts, Amanda, in trying to be, I presume, over years, correct, politically correct, be seen to be doing the right thing. The whole thing has shifted so massively in another direction that those boys are missing out. I told a story yesterday. You wouldn't have been listening, but I'm going to tell you this. It's extraordinary. And people, they go, oh, that can't be right. It is absolutely right. A friend of a friend's daughter's boyfriend at that point, 24, comes out of Durham University with a first-class honours degree, wants to work in, I would say, trading, in funding, in banking in London or in Manchester or wherever. Sends off over a year. A good-looking kid, white kid, intelligent, nice family, semi-professional rugby player. Sends off 200 CVs, Amanda, and doesn't get one response. And a friend of his jokingly told him what to do, and he wrote under sexuality non-binary, and he got 4 interviews in a month. I can't even laugh at that. That is disgusting and wrong. It is unbelievably wrong, isn't it?
It is really depressing to hear that because, yes, it's wrong. We've got to make sure that there is a high likelihood of a job for the young and roll back some of these policies that have unintentionally created terrible, terrible traps for too many people. And we've got to make sure that work pays for the young. It's got to clearly be a better option than staying on benefits. It should be harder for the young to opt out early on. It's really worrying when we hear about a large proportion of young people going straight from a college course onto long-term benefits.
But I'm really old-fashioned, Amanda. It was never meant to be a career choice. I'm absolutely delighted to pay every penny that they want from me to look after and help people who cannot help themselves. But whenever we have this debate, a letter was sent in yesterday saying that whenever I say this, what about the poor people who are missing out? And my point about the whole benefits argument and DEI and what you've just said is, I want to pay my taxes to help those who really need my help. I don't want to pay it so that people can shirk work and take a choice to make, because the point is the people who need that are missing out as a result, aren't they?
Yeah, and we need policies that are fair to everybody, whatever their skin colour, boys and girls. We've got to make sure that there's a high likelihood of getting a job and of work paying, because those are the things that really incentivise you to make the effort in education, not to drop out of school or college, to keep on attending, to keep on working. But the problem is that the things that often feel kindest and most caring in the very short term, wrapping protection around people, giving them immediate access to benefits, are often the very same things that harm them in the long term.
Of course they are, because that doesn't create... Listen, I'm old-fashioned. We had to go to work from 14. We had to help. That's what you had to do. I'm sorry, I agree with you, but I'll tell you one thing I didn't understand. I'm being straight here. You mentioned energy policy and net zero to blaming boys being left behind. How does that work?
Because it means fewer jobs. It means many parts of the country, the industries are closing. Every week we see reports of businesses closing, often manufacturing, the kinds of business that disproportionately employ men. If those close, then there aren't jobs for the young men coming through.
I think that's absolutely right. For me, it's the ideology, though. It's the ideology of making sure... listen, I haven't told this story before. It's that I used to do a television show, and just about sort of 2 years before it finished, suddenly there was an audience coordinator who had to make sure that the front rows of the audience had diversity all over it. Genuinely true story. To make it look good and to make it look acceptable. And you know, the problem is whenever you have this debate, people go, oh, are you against... No, I'm not against anybody. There's certain people I'm against, but you've gone the other way. And when a report says that working class white boys are being left behind in a country that should be looking, as you said, to support them and give them opportunity, I worry for the very fabric of what we've become, because we've become, I use this phrase every day, apologists. Apologists to people who commit crime, apologists to people who shouldn't be here, apologists to people who are given a leg up to the detriment of British people. And I don't think that as an argument is outrageous. I think it's a fact, don't you?
Yeah, it's really important that we don't run the country on prioritising one group over another, because ultimately that always breaks down, creates resentments, creates divisions. We've got to get back to getting it right for everybody.
But what I'm trying to say to you is, right, what I'm trying to say to you is, and why I agree with you, is that that division, which is unacceptable, was patently obvious before. But now I'm going to show you a video, right? I'm going to show you a video that I played this morning, and it only struck me as I was playing this. This is Ed Miliband, whatever you think of Ed Miliband. This is him, 20 seconds, talking to kids about net zero. Have a watch if you'd be so good, Amanda.
I'm trying to get lots of new ways that we can power our country, like solar power, wind power. What's good about that is it's good for tackling climate change, because you're not burning fossil fuels, which is what helps cause climate change, but also you can get cheaper energy bills for people. Yeah. So you're trying to do both of those things together. You're trying to make things better now, and you're trying to protect against climate change.
This question isn't based on climate change, and for many people they might be offended. I'm not offended to ask that. In that clip, there was one Chinese boy, one black girl and one black boy. There's an absolute example of what I've been talking about this morning. We've gone the other way. That's nothing against those kids, but there's no balance in that interview. That is completely and utterly, that is primed to get political attention. And I fear for our children, I do fear for our children, that ideology politically is putting them on the back foot. That's what really concerns me.
Yeah, it's a fair concern, Jeremy.
Great to have you on. Do you miss Ofsted? We miss you. You need to get back in the job. You speak common sense.
I did it for 7 years, Jeremy. It's time for somebody else now, but I try to keep on speaking common sense.
That's what they say to me. You've done it for 3 years. It's time for somebody else, but you speak common sense. Thank you so much indeed. Amanda Spielman, former Chief Executive of Ofsted. It is 5 to 8. We're live across the UK. What did you say to me, Kristen? I didn't hear that. What did you say to me? I didn't hear that. The signal, it's got... Oh, lovely, very much. Thank you. See, we just got a slight technical problem this morning. Jake Wallace-Simmons, we'll try and get him on. It's a real shame. I wanted to talk to him about that appalling ambulance attack yesterday. We had some problems with his technology. We will try very hard to get him on in the next hour. Vincent's in North Yorkshire. Morning, Vincent. Jez, let's put a 200% tariff on all French wine and cheese until they stop the bleeding boats. The French producers will be on the streets rioting within days. Cy is in Bournemouth. The home of the Roundhouse Hotel. Jez, if they change their name from Labour to Islam for Britain, everything the Labour are doing would make total sense. No one will be confused. As far as I'm concerned, they are a Muslim party now, whilst pretending to be for the working native Brit, says Cy in Bournemouth. Let's do a quick call for the news. Let's get Hertfordshire. Andrew, a very good morning. Only a minute on Talk Breakfast, I'm afraid. Good morning.
Yeah, those people that made that awful thing in relation to Grenfell and burnt it at a barbecue, that was wrong. So how can someone put a painting together that depicts an anti-Semitic trope? That is a criminal offence. Where are the police?
Oh, absolutely. Are you talking about this exhibition in Kent?
Yeah.
For people just tuning in, this is genuinely true. An exhibition in Kent showing Jews eating babies has been deemed as not aggressive, not abusive and not insulting by the police. It's utterly revolting, isn't it? Without any shadow of a doubt, utterly revolting. And that's the imbalance. Can I ask you a very quick question? Is anti-Semitism rife in this country?
We are an anti-Semitic country, from the Labour Party, universities, the BBC, The Guardian, Channel 4. We, as a country, the institutions, are anti-Semitic and hate the Jewish nation.
I hate that. I hate the fact. I don't disagree with you. I told the story. I went up to a couple at the airport the other day and said, I'm sorry. I appreciate it, Andrew. We've got to be really quick. I think he's right. We're seen as anti-Semitic. That we're seen as so many things. 0344 499 1000. Text to 87222. The news at 8, and Ian Duncan Smith is next on Talk Breakfast.
UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Labour MPs, they say, listen, Keir, your position is untenable. This is all about appointing that rat, Peter Mandelson.
We've now had another resignation from number 10. The plot is sickening, the noose is tightening.
His failings are internal. He's useless, incompetent, has no political judgment.
This is all part of Starmer's reset, getting rid of his inner circle. So Chris Wormold, we think fairly reluctantly, has stepped down.
What an absolutely crazy week for Keir Starmer. His second cabinet secretary, gone. His third chief of staff, gone. His fourth director of communications, gone.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
A very good morning, welcome back. This is Talk Breakfast. It's the home, of course, of common sense and the home of the alarm clock Brit. The news as you see it in your words across the morning, 6 till 10. We're here Monday to Thursday, 0344 499 1000 is the number you need. You can leave a voice note for Christian, who survived the illness and is back. You can text the show, 87222. What are you waking up to? Some astonishing stories. Ed Miliband, quite rightly accused of net zero fantasism. Kemi Badenoch today will be trying to pass a motion to say, why don't you just drill, you numpty? There's liquid gold. There's all this asset, this resource, and we are sinking into a sea of debt. Yesterday, the Offshore Energies UK said, drill, you idiot. He, though, no, I'm not doing that. I want to skint this country and put heat pumps and solar panels in every new house. Your thoughts on that? 0344 499 1000. Yesterday, the fallout from those 4 Jewish Hatzolah ambulances firebombs set fire to in Golders Green. Not even talked about on the BBC till 10 o'clock. Anti-Semitism is rife on our streets. It's an embarrassment to this country. Shabana Mahmood and Wes Streeting can say, but what are you going to do about it? Because you're allowing hate marches every week. You're allowing marches where people burn Israeli flags and where you can't even walk with an English flag. So let's have some action, because I will keep saying this until they fire me. We live in a country now where it seems to me, well, I find all racism abhorrent, but can you please explain to me why racist behaviour towards Jewish people, the Jewish community, is allowed to be got away with? We'll give you the latest on Iran. Overnight, Iran has fired missiles at Israel, despite Trump saying there was a ceasefire, then he was going to obliterate the Straits of Hormuz, and now there's a ceasefire, so we don't know. Loads to talk about. Let's say a very good morning to one of my favourite guests, a bit of an idol of mine, Sir Ian Duncan-Smith, former Conservative Party leader. Good morning, sir. How are you?
Very good, thank you, Jeremy.
Where do we start? I'll tell you where I want to start. I want to start, and you're honest enough to talk about this. This morning we heard that HMS Dragging Your Feet finally got to Cyprus 3 weeks after this conflict started, and whether the conflict's about to finish or not, it has shone a light, Sir Ian, on defence spending. And yesterday, the liaison committee, I don't know if you've seen this footage, our Prime Minister somewhat lost his rag. Let's have a watch, ladies and gentlemen.
The chiefs of staff are saying we need to be ready for war. So when are we going to be prepared, and prepared for what?
We are finalising the investment plan. That sits with the Strategic Defence Review.
This smacks of an enormous complacency.
Well, this smacks of the fact that for years there was underinvestment by the last government, and the stripping out and following out of our armed forces.
We've had 18 months
copyright
to deal
Ben
with that.
Wallace.
To be perfectly honest, Sir Ian Duncan-Smith, he's not wrong, is he, for once? This has been a systematic cut of our defence systems for many, many years, and it's come back to bite us.
Well, let's be honest about it. This has gone right back to the ending of the Cold War, when, I wasn't in Parliament then, but, they talked about a peace dividend. In other words, you could reduce spending on defence. We were spending at that time about 4.5% to 5% of GDP, as were supposed to be all the NATO allies, including the United States. And that eventually brought Russia, or the Soviet Union, to its knees because they couldn't compete. So the reality was the governments then decided they would take more money out of defence and have smaller levels of defence forces. The truth is, particularly in Europe, the European nations of NATO, we went too far. It was about 2 years ago, that the government started for the first time to reverse it.
But the threats today are much greater than they were, say, 10 years ago. It's becoming clear and obvious that China, Russia, Iran, North Korea are all working together to damage the nature of what I call the free world. And we've been stupid enough and ridiculous enough over the last 15 years not to recognize the progressive increase in the threat. That's happening. But the Prime Minister, it was Bernard Jenkin asking that question, and the Prime Minister was asked a very simple question. There's an investment plan that has got to be published, because without it, no one in industry knows what to tool up for if the government doesn't say what they're going to be spending their money on. And that has been waiting now for over a year to break the surface. We know what's going on. The Chancellor, Rachel Reeves, and the Treasury are blocking it at the moment, refusing to accept that they will have to fork out more money immediately. So this great idea they're going to get 2.6% and then eventually to 3%, not in this Parliament, is absolute idiocy. And they're able to talk about it like that because the investment plan hasn't been published. It's not being published because the Defence Department doesn't agree with the Chancellor. So we've got a row going on behind closed doors, and then all the Prime Minister can ever do is talk about what other people did. The threat is now. Let's all get together and figure out how much we have to spend.
I mean, I guess the first point of my question, which you've absolutely acknowledged in the way that you always do very honestly, is that this has been a systematic cut for years. But why we're right to then turn the spotlight on this man who wanted the job and is 20 months in is somebody told me the other day, Ian, £407 billion at the end of this year will be the bill for our welfare budget, which is ludicrous. And I have fight after fight, and yet we are floundering in terms of our expenditure on defence. And there is no doubt that if this government's priorities were different, then we would be in a very, very different position. I mean, he name-checked Ben Wallace. Ben Wallace spent years trying to get more money for defence, didn't he? I mean, you worked in cabinet with him. He was permanently at it. I had him on the show last week. He said his biggest frustration during his time was he couldn't get more.
Yeah, as I say, this has been a case for considerably longer than just the last few years. But in the last couple of years, before the last government lost office and went into, spending started to reverse itself. Now, that's not an apology. That's just a statement of fact. But the real thing here is, what do we do now? This is the here and now. This should not be a political argument. I mean, the government has not published the investment plan that they're meant to have, the defence investment plan. They never published the China audit. Now, they promised there would be an audit on whether China posed a threat to us. We're now told that Peter Mandelson and others put a red pencil through it because it would have damaged their relations with China.
Peter Mandelson, we're still listening to that, are we?
That's what we're hearing. That's what we're hearing. That they were involved in getting rid of this report because this report would have been too damaging to our relations with China, which would have not allowed the Prime Minister to go over there and make I think, a shambles of a visit. And then at the same time grant them this ludicrous super embassy. So we're in a kind of project kowtow to China. We dare not recognise the threat that they posed. They're not in the upper tier of furs, which would make them a threat. They've danced around that. So what we've got here is a government panic-stricken about growth. And you're right, welfare. They have absolutely refused to cut or change any of the welfare costs, which have spiralled in the last few years. I mean, when I was doing the welfare budget, we had to reduce spending, and we significantly did. The result of that, we had the lowest number of workless households since records began, more people going back into work, younger people going into work. We didn't have the problem they've got now. So,
but Ian, isn't it a simple theory that you can attach to so much nowadays, that it is okay to say no, because by saying yes to seemingly an entire generation, we have created feckless, lazy, I think, people who just take for granted that the state is going to wipe their backside. No, that's not popular with a lot of people, but I can look back and we had to go out to work, we had to earn, we had to walk up bloody hill in the morning. That's gone. If you are saying to a generation, do you know what? School, college, university, sign on. It was never meant to be a career choice, and I just think it's created softness that is emblematic of so much that's happening now. And I know I'm sounding like my dad, but I genuinely believe that somebody needs to come in and say, no, you're not having that. Whether it's illegal migrants or the feckless or the lazy, yes. Whenever I have this conversation here, people will go, what about the genuine cases? Well, those people are missing out, aren't they? Because other people are spending billions taking advantage.
Yeah, the problem lies in what happened during COVID. When I resigned, we had a greater control over it. The best route out of poverty is work. And the best is work isn't just about the money. It's important, it's about the money, but it's also about your state of mind. It's about building your character. It's about knowing that you're providing for people. You're not waiting for somebody else to. So I don't attack people who are in the difficult position they're in, but the key question is the pathway to work has to be easier. It has to be less expensive. Now, the Chancellor came in, and the worst thing she did was to attack businesses with national insurance hikes. Now, those national insurance hikes make it much more difficult for a business to employ somebody, A, part-time, because she lowered the starting threshold on national insurance, which kills off part-time work. The second thing she did was to raise the overall rate on businesses, particularly small businesses, where employing somebody is a big deal. It's expensive, you have to look after them, you have to make sure they've got all they need. So a lot of businesses now are either shutting down or they're just not bothering to hire anybody and not expanding their business. So when the government talks about growth, growth starts on the high street. Growth starts in the small businesses. It's the small businesses of Britain that produce most of the jobs. They always have done. If you hurt them, you hurt job creation. If you hurt job creation, you blight the prospects of young people who are looking for work at the time, can't find it, drift either into difficult, dangerous activities or end up ultimately on welfare. And once you're on some of those detailed welfare spending, things like sickness benefit, you're more likely never to come off them. Now,
how does that... I don't know if you saw this. Did you see the clip of Lord Matthew Elliott last week? He summed... I thought he summed this up brilliantly, the money that we spend on benefits. Have a quick watch, have a quick listen.
According to page 70 of the OBR's report, total welfare spending will rise this year, just this year, by £18 billion, further contributing to the national debt. This £18 billion increase is the equivalent to the entire annual budget of NASA, an organisation that is literally sending people around the moon this year. Thanks to the work of NASA, we have GPS navigation, satellite weather forecasting, camera phone sensors, infrared thermometers, cordless power tools, and even memory foam. Technologies to improve the lives of billions of people and which underpin trillions of dollars of economic activity.
He's not wrong. We're spending far, far too much money, Ian, and I don't see it. You made the point. I don't see it ending too quickly, and I think it's a massive, massive problem for this government. And of course, when we talk about defence and when we talk about stuff like that, you look at priorities. Can I ask you a few quick other things about the news? Yesterday, the Hatzola ambulances that were attacked in Golders Green. I broke it at sort of 6 o'clock in the morning. The story gathered pace. It wasn't on the BBC till 10 o'clock. We had some sort of half-hearted apology from Starmer and cabinet ministers out and about. But I just want to ask you, as a man I respect, just speaking it doesn't make sense to me. I'm beginning to be embarrassed with the way this country treats our Jewish neighbours and our Jewish friends. I'm beginning to find it deplorable that we don't attach the same horror to anti-Semitism as we quite rightly do to other forms of racism. And I think it's a really bad indictment of this country in right now.
Well, it is terrible. I confess I have a Jewish sister-in-law who says she's never felt more under threat in her country, this country, than at any other time, just walking the streets. You know, there is no other organisation that has to protect themselves as they do. Schools, their own buildings, synagogues, all have to be protected by the Community Security Trust, the CST. It gets some money from government, but it is funded also hugely by the Jewish population. And this is really a blot on our history now, because all these people, many of them, the Jewish families, have done so much to build the United Kingdom, build businesses, invest in industry, produce doctors, lawyers, some of the most brilliant in the world. And the problem is right now is we have a rise of anti-Semitism. I raised this yesterday on the floor of the House. One of the questions I asked the Defence Minister was, you know, you talk about trying to defend Cyprus and defend all these other places, but what about defending the Jewish community that sit here? And I said, you know, the Iranian Revolutionary Guard Corps, or sometimes called the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps, they are still not prescribed. What is the difference? Prescribing an organisation means it's illegal to have membership or to be involved in it. You'd be arrested just for being here as a member. We all through the years, I've argued we should get rid of these people. They are hugely behind this anti-Semitism and these attacks on Jewish communities because they hate the Jewish communities and they want to bring them down. So they've been fomenting extremism.
And we're allowing, this government allows hate marches. They allow people to walk up and down our streets of London burning Israeli flags, and if you walk past with a Union Jack or a St George, you're accosted by a policeman. It's barking, Matt. There's no sense in that.
Yes, well, they've been funding this. That's the whole point. So I said, we're in the middle of a war with Iran, whether we like it or not. Why in heaven's name do we still allow them to walk around without any problem, fomenting this violence and anger and financing it? They should be arrested. The government said at the beginning of this war, after years when they should have done it, they were going to do it. They still haven't done it. The Foreign Office doesn't want to do it because they think it stops their influence. I asked them the other day, what influence have you ever had over Iran? They couldn't care less what you have to say to them, and they just want to cause as much damage and hatred in our community. So these sort of things could be done immediately. It doesn't cost anything. It's just getting an act in, and that's done. And we'd do it in 1 hour if we had to, but the government refused to do it. Just like they do with the defence investment plan, it's all talk and no trousers. That's the trouble with this government. It's talk, 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 but when it comes to taking serious action, they can't even get a naval ship out to the Mediterranean without having to have it languishing in the channel while they can't accrue for it. This is appalling.
I could not agree more. Ian, it's always a pleasure. I really appreciate your time. I know you're a busy man and keep doing what you do. Former Conservative Party leader Ian Duncan-Smith, 80 minutes past 8, we're live across the UK. You're waking up to what? The news that Ed Miliband is being accused today of being a net zero fantasist. The Tories want to force a motion that says, drill, you idiot. Just drill. We've got liquid gold. We've got this reserve. We're skint. You're spending £407 billion a year on net zero, on benefits. You're spending £800 billion in the future on net zero, and this country is in trouble. His response to that today is to go, no, 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 no. Every single house that's built, well, a heat pump or a solar panel. The man is not listening. It's all going on. I mean, we've got anti-Semitism on our streets. We've got more and more migrants coming into our country. Morning, Stevie.
Morning, Jez. It's Steve from Essex here. Yeah, what you're going on about with the boats and stuff like that, it's been doing this for years. Have you not seen the people that's been out there watching the police and that? In fact, there was Annabella Oakeshott, didn't she interview that man who went out there investigated, who sat on the buses and said the same thing, that the police are sort of helping them come across in a way, just watching them, filming and that. And about our government giving £500 million to them, that's to pay to get them over here. I guarantee you. I don't know what gangs they're on about. No one wants to deal with it in the government. They want it all. Yeah, it's very concerning. And the moment people wake up and realise what's going on, I'm scared for the country.
Couldn't agree more. 20 past 8. Let's cross live to Westminster. We're delighted to be joined by Claire Coutinho, the Shadow Energy Secretary. Claire, a very good morning. Welcome to Talk Breakfast.
Good morning.
I'm trying not to rage today, but it's just not happening. I am raging. Can you explain to me in layperson's terms? Do you see what I did there? That was very politically correct, wasn't it? So you've got this man who patently believes in something that he believes in, foisting upon a country that's skint an experiment that won't achieve much, will cost infinite amounts of money that we haven't got, and yet under the very ground that we own is something that can pay off all our debts and bring people's bills down. But even worse than that, whilst we're messing around going, oh no, we don't want to frack, we don't want to drill, why would we do that? That's appalling. And we cancel all these oil and gas licences. The Norwegians, they're drilling in the exact same space, and this idiot, Miliband, then is buying it off them at more than if he took it out of his own ground. And I know that's a basic sort of description of what's going on, but the British people listening to this are going, hold on a minute, my bills are going through the roof because this is madness, this net zero madness. It's not about the environment, it's about the balmy, I think, ideals of one man, isn't it?
I mean, we're talking about the North Sea, and you're absolutely right. This is
ideology over the national interest. And that's why we Conservatives are forcing a vote today to say they've got to open up the North Sea. When I was in government, I signed off Rosebank. I was legislating to protect licences. But Labour have come in, and because of their ideological view, they have decimated the North Sea. We're losing 1,000 jobs a month. And like you said, Norway last year drilled about 40 odd new wells, found 21 new discoveries. We drilled zero new wells for the first time since 1964. And why? Because the Labour Party would prefer to import more gas from abroad, more gas, by the way, with higher carbon emissions, rather than use our own. So our position is you should support the North Sea. We are in a gas supply crisis. We are struggling, as you said, for cash. We are taxing people up to the hill. They're taxing pensioners, they're taxing farmers, they're taxing businesses, they're taxing students, they're taxing people on £30,000. Instead of that, you could be getting £25 billion of taxes from the North Sea. So it's absolute madness for the economy, for the environment, in terms of our borrowing, in terms of our debt, in terms of our energy security, not to be maximising everything we can from the North Sea. And that is why we are forcing a vote in the Commons today to make them open it back up.
Claire, you're forcing a vote. Offshore Energies UK has warned that Britain urgently needs to produce its own oil and gas. None of it makes any fiscal sense. And we talk about ideology, and I hate to make it sound as basic as it is, but it is madness. There's no other way of describing it. It's almost kamikaze. It's almost, I refuse to use this. It is more than, listen, the Tories at the end, the British public can stop listening. We don't need to have that debate. We're 18 months down the line. You are coming up with new policies, and that's why we're delighted to always have the Tory party on this show. But the truth of the matter is, you were giving out licences. This government is cancelling them. I would love, they won't come on ever, I would love to ask one of these Labour politicians, whatever you think about your ideology, you are skinting this country and you are going to be booted out of office because people realise as they, and I'm 60 and I could have told you this 2 years ago, which is why your party annoyed me so much. Every time the Labour Party is in power, we end up as skin to skin could be. And that isn't going to change. But it's this blind sort of obsession with something that is deemed to fail that I don't get. I don't get it at all.
And it's worth saying some of the biggest advocates for things like renewables in this country, Renewables UK, Greg Jackson, who's the chief executive of Octopus, have come out and said, this is bonkers. We should be drilling in the North Sea. It's actually not an either or. Look at somewhere like Norway. Yeah. They've got a lot of people who drive electric vehicles and they export a lot of oil and gas. And so they get lots of money into the exchequer from doing that. We could be doing the same. We're the only country in the world shutting down our domestic energy supplies. And for what? So we can be more reliant on other countries for our energy needs. It doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense even in terms of climate policy, because all of that LNG that you would be importing has 4 times the emissions of our North Sea gas. So it is ideology. It's not based on fact. It's not in the national interest, and they have to change course.
I mean, blatantly, they're not going to. I mean, somebody asked me something years ago, final bit, they said, so when you get to this net zero by 20, 30, 40 or 50, what do you get? Do you get a medal or something? Because it seems to me that at 1% of the carbon emissions in the entire world, everybody else is doing the things that matter. But they hold these polls, don't they, Claire? They go, are you concerned about the climate change or the environment? They go, yes. They don't seem to be able to appreciate or understand that this madness, and it is madness, is going to render this country completely bankrupt on the ideological altar of something that actually isn't proven to improve anybody's lives. That's the irony, well, the sad irony of it.
Well, I think the thing that I would say, so when I came in to be Energy Secretary, I started a net zero reset. I said, we've got to worry about the costs. And the thing that I was really concerned about is if you are putting so many net zero costs on businesses that they shut down in Britain so that you're importing the same things that we used to make here from places like China or India or wherever it may be, and those imports have higher emissions because they don't have the environmental standards that we have here, what are you doing in terms of climate change? Nothing. You actually got more emissions in the atmosphere because you're importing dirtier products, and you've got fewer jobs here. So it is complete madness. That's why we've said we would reverse the Climate Change Act. We have to be sensible about these things. Of course, people want to protect the environment, but that's not what we're doing at the moment. We're just offshoring emissions to other countries and making ourselves poor. That doesn't work for anyone.
Real pleasure to have you on, by the way, and I mean that. Total sense in everything you've said, and we appreciate your time this morning. Claire Coutinho, Shadow Energy Secretary, on the front bench for Kemi Badenoch, who will force a motion in Parliament today to say to the government, just drill, you idiots, drill, it's there. We can be better off. People's bills can come down. I'm in trouble, it's 8:26. Oliver has been sat in the car for 15 minutes. I do apologise, Ollie Bolly. He's off to school. He won't go unless... very good morning from Daddy. Hope you're OK. Rissi Roo as well. 8:26, it's Talk Breakfast. Back in 3.
Conflict breaks out anywhere in the world, it has consequences here at home. Talk War is your definitive national security briefing. From the conflict in Ukraine to the tensions in Gaza and the latest escalation with Iran, this is where you'll find comprehensive comment and expert analysis with multiple updates throughout the day. The Talk War podcast from Talk, available on the Talk app or wherever you get your podcasts.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Where's this morning gone? It's 8:30. This is Talk Breakfast, the home of common sense and the home of the alarm clock Brit. So much to talk about. Morning, Wayne.
Morning, Jezza. It's Wayne from Erdington in Birmingham, mate. Blowing up them ambulances, of course it was an act of terror. And if you'd have thought for 1 minute that it was the far-right thugs, he'd have labelled it terrorism immediately. But because it's his Muslim friends, he won't go that extra mile and call it terrorism. Of course he won't. We all know that he won't. This man is a coward. He's a lame duck. Get him out of this country before he drags it further down. Keep up the good work, Jezza. Keep pointing out the faults of this moron.
I guess he's talking about Keir Starmer. Let's go to a man who always calls it out, who's in the middle of a worldwide tour, who's gone from being just a commentator on this station to worldwide fame. A very good morning, Peter Blexley. Oh, not another one. Honestly, what is wrong with us today? Where is everybody? What's that? There's a technical issue, it seems. Or issue, that was a very posh way of saying issue, wasn't it? There seems to be a technical issue with people's Wi-Fi this morning. You know what's happened? All the Wi-Fi's gone down because Starmer... No, I'm joking. 0344 499 1000. Loads of you texting. We're going to try... it's like magic. 3, 2, 1. Morning, Peter Blexley. Right, you're doing my head in now, you lot. Well, I'm not going to something that doesn't work. Jez, Paul B in Cornwall, as the saying in the military goes, if you want peace, prepare for war. He's a military veteran and a former police service officer as well. He's in Cornwall. Kev, what's his name? Margaggle. I can't even say it. Anyway, he says, I can sort the French out, revoke the bloody fishing licences. If they want the fish, let them buy it from their own fishing fleet, thereby getting our 500 million quid back. Let's go to the phone lines where we try, please God, to sort out Peter Blexley. Let's go to Cambridge. Melissa, you're on Talk Breakfast. Good morning.
Morning, Jeremy. Lovely to speak to you this morning.
And you, my darling. What can we do for you?
I'm a bit upset this morning. I've got you on demand, so obviously I'm a little bit behind. But I heard this morning that government are employing a transgender person to look after the endometriosis side of things. I was rushed to hospital yesterday in a blue light ambulance because I've got stage 4 endometriosis, which is leading into my bowel. And there's a possibility I might need a colostomy bag and a hysterectomy. I've been waiting 14 months to actually see somebody to discuss it, to even be put on the list for a hysterectomy, which might be another year or so.
The reason I did this story is, the reason I did this story for you, my darling, is, without going into too much detail, I have a family member, I'm not going to say who because she wouldn't forgive me, who at quite a young age has been through exactly what you're going through, the most painful, debilitating illness, destroyed her as a woman, led to a hysterectomy and all sorts of problems. And this government, whether people like this or not, right, this is on page 2 of The Sun, think it is acceptable to put as the head of the Endometriosis Society in the South Coast, Steph Richards, who was born a male. And whatever your political persuasion, or people want to accuse me of being outspoken, that is a disgraceful act that in no way shows any empathy to any biological woman. It is utterly, it is mad, it is disrespectful, it is dangerous, isn't it?
They would never understand how I feel.
I know, babe.
They would have no idea.
It's horrible. It's honestly, I swear to you, mate.
I'm sorry to get upset.
Why should you be sorry?
I spent all day yesterday in the hospital being pumped with morphine.
Should never apologise, mate. This show's supposed to be about, you know, it's supposed to be about honesty, isn't it? And if in any small part we can call stuff out that gets a response and gets people to understand the sheer horror of some of these decisions, it's like, and I'm not taking it away from you, it's like I said yesterday when those ambulances were attacked, we had a Jewish girl, Alicia, she's fantastic. And she looked at me and she went, that's what I've come to expect as a Jew. What you've come to expect as a woman who's suffering endometriosis, that this bloody government think it's okay to put a bloke in charge. It's madness. Mate, listen, I hope, genuinely hope and pray that you get the right help and that you get through this. It's not easy, and I know that from my family member, but you need love and support, and here whenever you want us, all right, my darling?
Thank you so much.
Thanks, Melissa. That's Melissa in Cambridge. You know why? The reason that call that's so important is because that actually proves that the human side of some of this barking mad stuff. You know, we talked this morning about, you know, like net zero. Oh, it's very good. Let's go on this quest. Let's just make sure everything's fine. What's the impact on people's energy bills? Let's create an endometriosis society with a transgender person in charge. What, that looks good, does it? That box ticks, does it? Imagine people like Melissa. She's sitting there thinking, how can a bloke even begin to understand what I've gone through? This is Talk Breakfast.
across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back. Many of you shocked by that call I just took from Melissa in Cambridge, a woman who's suffering from endometriosis and quite honestly said, I can't believe this government would put a man in charge of something so utterly appalling. Couldn't agree more. Thank you to her and thank you for all your response. Stephen Lincoln says, my wife has suffered from endometriosis for years. How disrespectful. 0344 499 1000. I can't even believe this breaking news. Is this... There's a breaking news story that genuinely makes me wonder what I'm doing and where I live. A 12-year-old boy, ladies and gentlemen, has been charged with sexual assault after a woman in her 60s was found in Birmingham, right, with serious injuries. She was found in her home last week. A 12-year-old... honestly, I feel like I live in a different planet. Talking about people who are brave, as our last caller, talking about people who won't rest until they do the right thing. I've never met this lady. I'm in complete awe of her. Many of you will know that appalling story, the Nottingham attacks. The school caretaker, Ian Coates, has two young, wonderful kids. Barnaby Webber's mother, Emma, has made it her life's work to go to the inquest and get the truth and the inquiries and set up in her son's memory just the truth. You're very welcome to the show this morning.
Oh, it's really lovely to be here. Thanks for having me.
I said it to you last time. I'm in complete awe. People moan about getting up early in the morning. You deal with the death of your son and you make it your life's work to do what's right by it.
Yeah, well, I still moan about getting up early in the morning.
How do you get up in the morning?
So, that's a good question. I don't know. Sometimes it's getting through the day, it's getting through the week. At the moment, it's getting through the inquiry. But, yeah, I've got to right this wrong for my child and trying to simplify it. That's what I'm doing. And because I know how gross the failures have been and how appalling so many organisations and institutions and individuals have been, I can't and I won't stop. I won't stop until it's addressed. And the same with Grace's parents and the same with Ian's sons.
It's really interesting because, interesting is the wrong word, forgive me, Barnaby, of course, Barney Webber, Grace O'Malley, Kumari and Coates, the 65-year-old caretaker. I can't ever find the words Valdo Calacane. I don't understand how he's allowed to live. That's just my thoughts. But there have quite obviously been a catalogue of mistakes. And it's very easy, isn't it? It's very easy through bitterness, hear me out, to point the finger.
Yeah.
But that's not the case here. This is not... I'm sure there's sadness, anger and complete bitterness, but what you portray is a woman who simply wants to right the wrongs, point out the inadequacies so that this never happens again.
Yeah, and don't never underestimate the fury. I say it all the time. There's white hot fury that runs through my veins towards Calacane particularly, but to all of those who have done wrong. I have to do the right thing, and when you just know something's wrong, you know something's wrong, and we're sat now 4 weeks in week 5 of a statutory public inquiry, of which I think is potentially one of the biggest this country's ever seen, because of the sheer scale of institutions and organisations and individuals that failed. And there was a moment before...
Give us some examples of that.
Christ. Where do we start? So there are... The core participants are basically an organisation or a group or an institution that have got questions to answer. And we've got 2 police forces, 2 hospital trusts, the University of Nottingham, the CPS themselves, the City Council of Nottingham, the IOPC, the CPS, the Royal College of Psychiatrists, the Home Office, and I've probably forgotten some. And then, of course, there's the bereaved, as we're called, the bereaved families, the survivors. Then there's the Calacane family themselves, well, represented by 2 of them, the mother and the brother. The father's been nowhere to be seen. But that's the sheer scale of it, Jeremy. And we've got the police forces that failed to stop him on countless occasions from 2020 onwards, and as we heard last week...
Oh God, we did this last time, I can't...
Yeah, well, it began back in, we believe it began back in the early, 2012, 2013, but the police chose not to interview a witness who called in after he'd murdered my son, Grace and Ian, to say that she lived with him in Wales in 2012, 2013, cleaner at Pembrokeshire College. He had serious mental health issues when they flat shared with him, another group of young students flat sharing with him, and he abused an animal. And the police officer, Lee Sanders, chose not to interview due to location. So they
due to location?
Yeah, I saw the note.
Just take this into your account. This woman whose son was murdered by this piece of crap. And that, and then the other story, he was freed by mental health workers in Nottingham, there will be people in their car. Just hold on to the steering wheel. Callacane was freed by mental health workers in Nottingham who feared that detaining him would be deemed racist.
Yeah. Well, he wasn't sectioned once because it was because of his ethnicity. Do you know, it doesn't matter what colour you are. If you're dangerous, you're dangerous. Yeah. In September 2022, he was discharged from Nottinghamshire Mental Health Trust by a senior psychiatrist who will be in the seat over the coming weeks. Who discharged him with no full risk assessment, didn't look at his notes properly, didn't note that he was wanted on warrant for arrest for an assault on a mental health worker. He discharged him back to the community because of non-attendance at appointments. He let this dangerous monster loose in September 2022. In June 2023, we know what happened. Bear in mind, in May 23, he violently assaulted co-workers in a Leicestershire factory he was working in, and the Leicestershire police officers that turned up didn't bother to put his name into the system properly. If they had, they would have seen on PNC, massive red marker, very violent. They would have seen...
They didn't put his details in.
Well, they said they didn't put his name in properly. However, we now know, because we forced the niche... This is where it gets really complicated, Jeremy. We forced the IPC to have the niche system rebuilt, which is basically the police record system, because we knew that they were potentially not telling the truth. I've got to be careful what I say, when they said they didn't put his details in, because we'd seen something else in an interview they had said. Anyway, it turns out that the young officer investigating, she was in the stand a few weeks ago, she has to admit that she entered the niche system because it's on record, she entered it twice, once for 30 seconds, once for 40 seconds. But apparently she didn't see the marker, the warrant for the outstanding arrest, the other 40-plus occurrences of instances with the police. So it's eyes wide shut. And it's people...
How do you, on a serious note, this quest, quite rightly, for your son and his memory, and you said... white-hot anger runs through every vein. Is it police, decades-long failures, social services, mental health workers, local government, hospitals, whatever, trust? Do you not, the more you dig into this, realise how utterly incompetent, dereliction of duty, but as a mother, don't you think, this could have been bloody stopped? My son could still be here.
It should have been stopped on, I would say, 10, 15, maybe even 20 occurrences. He should have been stopped.
With that?
Well, that's the question. Because if I couldn't address this, and I would say the same with Grace's family and Ian's family, we have to address it, because we know, and we've been given a voice. The media has been amazing and supported us and raise the profile for the public scrutiny. We've got this inquiry and we have to make it count. But I don't think the inquiry alone is going to answer everything. So we have to see this through, hear all the evidence, get all the truth, see what the chair does, and then we'll see what the next steps are. But we will get accountability for individuals who didn't do the jobs properly. We will get accountability from the institutions. Don't give me lessons learned or, unreserved apologies. They can throw those in the bin they belong. And we will do our very best to get this miscarriage of justice overturned. He should not be in a mental hospital. He planned, he knew what he was doing. He targeted students. It's the most brutal attack that the majority of the officers that have given witness have ever seen. That's how bad it is.
If you're tuning in to Talk Breakfast, this is the incredibly brave Emma Webber, the mother of Barnaby Webber, who, along with Grace O'Malley Kumar and Ian Coates was murdered by that vile schizophrenic Valdo Calacane, and the inquiry in Nottingham continues. You're there every day.
Well, it's here. No, it's here in London at Mary Ward House every day.
Every single day. And the catalogue of mistakes and inconsistencies is powerful. This is the first time we've met face to face. I said, sorry about that. I said to you...
What, really?
Well, you know, I'm old now.
So am I.
No, you're not. If it's not too painful, just with me, you don't have to. Take me back to the day you found out.
Well, it's... My life stopped at about 10:15 a.m. on the 13th of June in a car park in Cornwall, because we'd seen the news breaking. We were desperately trying to get hold of him. We couldn't. And the worst thing ever, Jeremy, Find My Friend, we all use those apps for our kids, don't we? And Dave and I said, oh, don't worry, he's not back at his halls, he's in somewhere called Ilkeston Road, we don't know where that is. And then the phone started moving, and then the phone went to Radford Police Station. And I think as a mum, I just knew. And we were calling and calling and calling, and we eventually got the phone call back. They knew 5 hours earlier, by the way, Barney's identity. It took us to call. We knew, we were the first to know at 10:15. The Kumars weren't told until midday. The Coates brothers, James, was not told until 5 p.m.
Why?
And as you may have heard yesterday, they left his dad's body where he was murdered in Magdala Road for 15 hours. So that's it. I could be on here for hours and just give you revelation after revelation, but...
What's the reason behind that? Why did they wait 5 hours to tell you about Barnaby and 7 hours to say about Grace?
I don't know. And then what was it? 15 hours? No, not 15. 12 hours for Ian. Those poor boys. Grace's mum, Sinead, knew through social media, through the kids, because he's their students. They had their IDs on them, they had their driving licences on them, they weren't robbed, they had everything left on them.
You said
so my life changed in a moment, and I
You said as a mum, you know. You knew.
When that, and it's so painful, when that phone started moving and I saw the headlines, and do you know what, it had said by about 9:30, a man and a woman killed. And I didn't think that it could be, because Barney's my child and he was 19, and they're referred to as students, but yes, they are adults. But they were 19. He didn't even get to his 20th birthday. And his brother's 19 this year, and he's doing his A-levels at the moment. And
what was the last... Did you speak to him that day or the night?
Dave spoke to him. David and I worked, because we were down in Cornwall. We spoke to him... Well, I heard his voice on the Monday evening. So it happened on the early hours of the Tuesday morning. He was in his halls. By the way, his halls were 3 minutes walk away from where Calacane murdered him. And Calacane hid for half an hour. 7 people walked by before he attacked Barney and Grace. He knew what he was doing, and I will maintain that to the day I die. But I heard Barnaby's voice on the phone when he was talking to his dad. We just called for a check-in on the Monday. He was moaning because it was hot. He was off in his halls, tiny window open, and then it wasn't going out because he was supposed to be coming home. He was up there because he was playing cricket that week, and he was going to his cricket dinner on the Wednesday, and he was coming home on the Thursday or Friday, depending on how bad his hangover was. And that's the last time we heard his voice.
He said something... Jeez.
And I always cry now when I talk about that. I can talk about my fight, but when I talk about my son, it's so difficult.
Sorry.
No, it's... I cry every day.
The hard thing is, and I was thinking about this, you said that the media have been very good.
Yes.
But you've had to deal with your grief in the media spotlight.
Yes, and that's
horrible,
the balance
right?
of it. That's what we've had to sacrifice.
Yeah,
we have, and I recognise media can be intrusive, media can be destructive, but genuinely, without us having to expose our raw grief and horror and tragedy in the public eye, and working with the media when they want to talk to us, there's no way we would be at a statutory public inquiry now. No one would have done the right thing and due diligence and all of that. Absolutely not.
That's where...
We've had to kick the doors down to get it to happen.
You are right, that the press... So much of it is wrong, and very happy to say that. Not even sticking up for any particular person, or organisation. But the one thing the press can do is, when there's a story like this, it's like a dog with a bone. There isn't a sane person in this country, I suspect, and I could be wrong, I'd love to hear from people, that doesn't think that this vile piece of
whatever should even be alive, right? And we live now, you know this, we live in an apologist society where we seem to apologise for everybody that's done anything as against the victims. There's not that feeling in this case. In this case, there is an absolute nationwide desire to get justice for your son and for Grace and for Ian Coe, and to make sure, and this is the thing about the inquiry that needs to be said to people, that it never happens again. And of course, it's easy to hide stuff, can't be hidden. It's like, I'm changing subject, but one of the biggest travesties alongside this is that there hasn't been a rape gang inquiry. It's beyond me as a father. It drives me utterly insane.
Imagine every decision you make in your workplace, right? You never think that in 1 or 2 years down the line, all of your emails, all of your conversations are going to be made public. And that's what's happening, thank God, now, because now we're seeing the rot, the real rot. And we're 4 weeks in, Nottinghamshire Police, Leicestershire Police. I have not seen one single moment of redemption for them. That it is as bad as you can imagine. But there has to be optimism, there has to be something that we can try to get out of this and change. But I'm every single day, every single witness, almost without exception, I feel so disappointed in, because they're up there and they just... where's the humanity sometimes? If you've done something so wrong, just admit it. I'd actually almost respect them if they just went, yeah, that was wholly wrong. We have had... yes, I apologise for my mistake. No, it was a gross incompetence and failure. So I don't want to come across as a pernicious mum who can't let it lie.
Why would you let it lie?
Well, yeah, but I'm always going to be hateful of the person that murdered my child.
Of course.
And I do hate him.
I think he should be alive. I don't think he should be alive.
£350,000 a year minimum it costs to keep him in Ashworth. He's got a swimming pool. He's got a vegetable patch. Yeah, and it's... Yes, but what should happen is he is mentally unwell, but once he is recovered or recovered enough, he should go and serve time in prison. But where it stands is he got a hospital order only.
He only got a hospital order?
He got an indefinite hospital order. This will all come out, Jeremy. Please invite me back once a psychiatrist has been in the chair.
You can be here every day. Sorry, can we just repeat? He calculatedly murdered 3 people, including your son.
And tried to murder 3 more.
He'd been missed on 15 occasions and he got a hospital, yeah?
He got an indefinite hospital order.
And we put Lucy Connolly in jail. Honestly, I'm sick to death, and I don't care if people writing, I am sick to death of these people who will make excuses for people. He doesn't deserve liberty. He doesn't deserve life. That's my opinion. I'm allowed to say it. It's not Talk's position. I think you are... Geez, I've done this a long time. You'll probably think this is the wrong thing to say. He'd be really proud of his mummy.
He'd be annoyed at you saying mummy.
It's not cool.
He'd be eye-rolling.
I think he'd be like, really, I've got a 19-year-old. Yeah, that's really not right. She's doing a dissertation. She calls it dis. And I'm like, what is obsessed with you bloody children that everything has to be shortened?
But very much so, yeah, Barney, I hope you're proud of me. But also, I have Charlie. Charlie was 15 when this happened. He's lost his absolute hero nemesis. He's all right. He's 19 this year. He's going to university, and that terrifies me. But we have to let him do it. He'll be up here tomorrow, actually, because David and I are giving our evidence tomorrow morning. And you know, and I've insisted, as have the other families, it's going to be on the public live stream because we've got nothing to hide or embellish. I don't need to be hidden away. And we're going to be asked by counsel to the inquiry about, you know. It's largely due to the families and our fights and then the survivors as well that we've got this inquiry. So, yeah, I've got a pile of evidence I've given. It's all the emails, it's everything I've ever done. And, you know, I've got nothing to hide or defend. So I'm very comfortable with being asked about it tomorrow and sitting in that room. And, yeah, I'm doing it for Barney. I kind of feel he's there. I be woo-woo, but I have to feel he's there. But for Charlie, because Charlie has to know that his brother's gone, but we did everything to address that wrong.
What you're doing through incredible bravery is actually, by ensuring that this is looked into, you're protecting everybody else in this country from this not happening again. And I have to say, from a media point of view, you know, what happens after this inquiry, there is no way that governments and institutions won't be able to listen. You are always welcome here. You are an unbelievable person, your family. What can I say to you, mate? I hope tomorrow.
Thank you for the opportunity.
Always on this show,
genuinely.
as long as I'm here.
Yeah, and I'm very comfortable talking to anybody, and anyone can challenge me about things I might say, because I understand that we're in such a world where the news is so wide and it's easy to see the headlines and to, you know, trust me, everything that we've done is been done because we know how wrong it all is. We know the failures, and we're uncovering them now for the public to see.
Emma Webber, whose son Barnaby Webber and Grace O'Malley Kumar, and of course 65-year-old Ian Coates, murdered by Valdo Calicaine. It's the National Inquiry. It's in London. She's there every single day. One of the bravest people I've ever met. Thank you, sweet. Good luck. News at 9 is next on Talk Breakfast.
Current affairs, international news, letting criminals off while sending... Oi! You shut up. I'm trying to record something.
Stand by for 3 powerhouse hours of breaking news, challenging views. I don't give a flying damn about international law. I think people will viscerally reject this.
On DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Over the past 36 hours, the United States and its partners have launched Operation Epic Fury, one of the largest, most complex, most overwhelming military offensives the world has ever seen. Nobody's seen anything like it. We have hit hundreds of targets in Iran, including Revolutionary Guard facilities, Iranian air defense systems. Just now, it was announced that we knocked out 9 ships plus their naval building, all in a matter of literally minutes. Iran's formerly supreme leader, Ayatollah Khamenei, is dead.
I spoke to you about the situation in the Gulf and explained that the United Kingdom was not involved in the strikes on Iran. That remains the case. The basis of our decision is the collective self-defense of long-standing friends and allies and protecting British lives. That is in accordance with international law, and we are publishing a summary of our legal advice. We are not joining these strikes, but we will continue with our defensive actions in the region.
Mr Farage, would a reform government have allowed US forces to use UK air bases for offensive operations in Iran?
Yes is the answer to your question. I would have said to the Americans, please do use our bases. We will be supportive of you on this.
There were a series of very loud blasts in the area of Dubai that I'm based in. That's in the marina area. It's a very touristy area, actually. Those blasts were the loudest we've heard yet, but equally we are reassured that they are most likely the sound of interception by the UAE's quite sophisticated
across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back, my friends. Just gone 9 o'clock. You were told breakfast, the home of common sense, and of course the home of the alarm clock Brits. And let's just reflect a little bit. Your response to that last interview, astonishing. Emma Webber, the mother of Barnaby Webber, cruelly murdered along with Grace O'Malley Kumar and 65-year-old Ian Coates by Valdo Calacane, is in the middle of, she's into her 5th week of the national inquiry into this tragedy. And not a shred of bitterness, just complete honesty from a woman saying the failings on all sorts of institutions. I will not rest until those failings are acknowledged to make sure that such a horror never works again. Nikki, Jez, what an amazing and strong woman Emma is. I was in tears listening to her. My heart breaks hearing her story. Hopefully there is justice for Barnaby and the others killed by that horrendous monster. Luke in South Wales, it was very brave of Emma to talk about the death of her son. My observation is all of these people who failed and what led to this man being able to kill these 3 people, these people need to be held to be accountable. It is unacceptable if they're not. Ian Stevens, what a powerful interview. My best wishes to this incredibly brave and authentic lady. That horrible man responsible for the Nottingham attack should be given the death penalty. This country makes me sick. Kev, so angry listening to Emma explaining the situation. What a brave woman. I hope she keeps up the fight for her son, and I'm sure she will. Kevin Southampton, thank you very much indeed for all of the messages. Far too many to read out, but actually the point is this. What Emma Webber is doing and what this station and show will do is help her and follow her, is highlighting, you know, we live in an apologist world, it seems now, where we apologise for everybody. Well, what about a bit of truth and honesty? This man was released because it would have seemed racist. He was ignored. Details weren't put in by the police. 15 occasions to be caged. He's now in a hospital with a swimming pool. Her life, her kid's life, Grace's parents' life, everybody's life is over, right? And he's doing that. We need to toughen up. Morning, Dave.
Morning, Jezza. Dave from Oxfordshire here. Listening to Emma Webber, Barnaby Webber's mother, is just so inspiring for me. She's a formidable woman. She talks with eloquence and she's just represents so many people in this country. And she's somebody that people should look up to. She's got everything it takes to take this government and all the failures in the system to account, and I wish her all the best. I really do. And I just want to say that every time I hear her on the radio and on your show, and she's just amazing, and you know, keep going, just keep going. We're all behind you.
Nice words. Thank you very much indeed. 0344 419 1000 is our telephone number. You can leave a voice note. We'll also take your text messages between now and the end of the show. What are you waking up to? There was that interview, which is shocking. We're talking net zero with that fantasist Ed Miliband. We're talking about that horrible Jewish attack on those Hatzalah Jewish buses yesterday in Golders Green. We're talking about an increased influx of migrants as the weather gets better. And we're talking about the BBC that's banned an episode of The Repair Shop because Bob Monkhouse's family took his joke book in, and a production worker was so traumatised by the impact it had that they've decided to ban a man who used to tell outrageous jokes like, with my wife it was sex, 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 yeah, 3 times in 55 years. Here's a man who hopefully will laugh at that joke. We say a very good morning to my only Labour friend, Labour MP for Hull East, Carl Turner. Good morning.
Good morning, Jeremy.
Let me start by asking you your response to that Emma Webber. What an amazing woman, and what a catalogue of absolutely unprecedented cock-ups that need to not only be called out but be dealt with, Carl.
It's incredible, Jeremy. I mean, I met Barney's mother, Emma, when I was the Shadow Solicitor General, and I was struck by a compassion, actually, but actually the fact that she was so determined to get to the bottom of what was just institutional failings, which led to the murder of their son and his pal. It was unbelievable how she presented. She was calm and cool, but really determined. And she persuaded myself and the then Shadow Attorney General that we must have an inquiry if Labour won the general election. And I'm pleased that that happened. But previous government, I'm not having a pop at the Tories, it had effectively been ruled out. There was not going to be an inquiry into that. It was not an important enough situation to lead to an inquiry. Of course it was. The reality was this guy was running around like a madman. He'd been failed himself. Mental health had failed him. And, you know, regrettably, it led to the murder of those three people. It was a shocking a shocking thing that should never have happened.
Good and honest words. Welcome to the show. We love you because you're the only one that takes off the tin helmet and puts your hat above the parapet. Do know that they're suggesting a half an hour, 45-minute phoning call is it's creatively crap. Call Carl. Bet you never thought you could be so excited, son, did you? Do you know what I mean?
I'd be up for something like that, Jeremy.
I've heard. Let's talk about... We're going to argue here. Ed Miliband is accused of net zero fanaticism, making Britain poorer and weaker. You won't be interested, but Kemi Badenoch today trying to pass a motion to say, for Christ's sake, man, we are skint. We've got £407 million bill for welfare, which needs looking at, billion, and we've got this reserve in the sea, and we need to move away from this mad, oh, my God. The truth of the matter is, yesterday, even the Offshore Energies UK said, Miliband, listen, apart from going on about solar panels and heat pumps, the truth of the matter is this country is financially on the edge. Use the assets that we've got. The irony of this is, Carl, more than anything is, we won't drill, and a mile from where we should drill, the Norwegians are drilling, and we're buying it off them. You've got to agree with me. It makes no sense, this policy, at all.
I absolutely agree with you. I think it's balmy. We should be allowing those licences to drill for oil and gas in our own seas. I don't understand it. I've said as much. I just think it's balmy. We should be getting on with it. And, you know, if for nothing else, it creates jobs. What's wrong with us? Get on with it.
Do you then label net zero as madness? Richard Tice calls it net bloody zero, net mad zero. I mean, it is madness, isn't it? It's become madness.
But we've got to address the issue, and we've got to have a target for net zero. But when circumstances change, when we've got a war in the Middle East, when we've got Trump going into Iran, and the fact that the Strait of Hormuz is blocked with vessels deliberately to stop us getting 20% of the world's oil and gas through the system, you've got to do something else. And I think Ed Miliband needs to look at that and do it fast.
Maybe, and this is probably the wrong thing to say, won't be the first time, maybe what's happening in the world will focus his stupid brain, because this goes beyond that. This is before all of that. You know, your party came to power and said we're going to lower energy bills. They haven't gone down, they've gone up. The truth of the matter is I don't understand as a sane human being. This is my problem, right, Carl, and you agree with me, and I'm great, is, you know, you're skint, but you've got an asset, right? Well, you'd use that asset to pay off your debts to make sure that you weren't wasting money. We'll talk about welfare in a minute, but that to me, and the irony of, a bit like, you know, get rid of the farmers, plant the wind farms, oh, it doesn't create enough, so we'll have to buy it. You're buying it from countries who are drilling. You're buying it from countries who might care about net zero but are actually doing productively the right thing, and we're paying more, so you're cheating the people. It's just unbelievable. To me, it's unbelievable. He seems to have an enormous pull over Starmer. What's that caused by then?
Well, I think he's fairly, I think he's fairly committed to his cabinet position. I think he's probably... think he's probably determined to get to net zero, and I think that's a fair thing.
What happens if you get there, then? What, you get a medal? Because nobody else. We're only 1% of the... I mean, I'm being serious. We're only 1% of the world's carbon dioxide. No, nobody else. Russia and China are just trying to conquer the world, and we're going, oh, by 2030 we'll be net zero. And I'm not going to... The truth is, what happens when you get there? Does somebody go, well, now we need -10? It's not like anybody's going to pin a medal on our chest and go, sorry it cost you 1,000 trillion billion quid and you're all skint and everything's broken, but you've achieved net zero. So what?
I don't know what happens when you get there. I think you probably might end up with a medal, Jeremy. I'm not sure what the prize is, but I think we need to get a grip of what's happening, and the reality is we've got some reserves that we ought to be tapping into, in my view.
Couldn't agree more, mate. Yesterday we broke this story. And it annoys me so much, and I want you to be able to answer something that was said this morning. The Hatzoller ambulances that were attacked in Golders Green, to me, despite a couple of cabinet ministers coming out, and the platitudes are great, I have a real issue with any form of racism, but I do not and will not understand how we live in a country now whereby this is blatantly allowed against the Jewish community, 250,000 of them. This is actively encouraged when marches are allowed that see Israeli flags being burnt. This is actively not demonstratively dealt. It isn't dealt with as strongly. We have a Labour Party instigating an anti-Muslim czar, right, an Islamophobic, but nothing to do with anti-Semitism. And of course, the challenge to the Labour Party, as people will say, quite rightly, it's all about the Muslim vote. How do you, as a Labour MP, answer what Richard Tice said this morning? He said, I look across at those green benches and I reckon half of those MPs are they're not sympathetic to the cause of anti-Semitism. It has been a problem for your party. Starmer said he'd rooted it out, but why in the name of God is your government not stronger on, let's start with the hate marches? They should be banned.
Well, look, we have to be careful about banning marches. If it's peaceful protest, we've got to allow them to exist.
Burning an Israeli flag.
I think when it becomes anti-Semitic, and it does often, I have to be honest with you, I think people need to be pulled out, arrested, prosecuted. But I think you can't just say we're going to ban this march or that march, providing the police are prepared to police the march.
I know it's difficult for you, but you've seen the footage. You've seen those hate marches with people walking with the Palestinian flags, burning the Israeli flags. And I saw a thing, Carl. You're a straight man, you and I got on great. There's a bloke walks past them with a Union Jack saying, this is unfair, and you see 6 policemen talking to him. I don't understand. We might have different political views, but we're decent men who go down the pub for a drink. How the hell does anybody expect to think that that's acceptable in the United Kingdom? It's ludicrous.
Well, I mean, what is ludicrous and what is absolutely not acceptable is what happened yesterday in Golders Green. It was a deliberate, targeted terrorist attack, actually, on those ambulances, which were not used for Jewish people. They were used by a charity, which is a charity that helps the community.
And by the way, provided by the Jewish community and voluntarily driven, but you make a really salient point, for the whole community. And this from the Jewish community is ostracised and set upon. It's awful.
Yeah, I mean, just it's worse than that. It's terrorism, in my view. And, you know, we've got to deal with that. And it's no good politicians turning up with a sweeping brush to sweep glass up and, you know, say, look, we'll get you the ambulances back and all the rest of it. We've got to do more than that. We've got to make sure that there's more policing in Golders Green at the moment. We've got to make sure that, you know, people who are suspected of these terrorist attacks, because there'll be intelligence on these types of attacks. There has to be. We need to go after them, and we have to be harder, and we have to get them locked up. That's the reality. They should go to jail for a long, long time.
There's a lot of criticism. There's a lot of criticism of Labour, which again you are honest enough to answer. Now, that the real criticism right now of the Labour Party, if you look at the last election, you look at the 5 independent Gaza-only MPs who took Jonathan Ashworth's seat, you got Wes Streeting, only had a 652 majority. This is a direct question to you. The Labour government has been accused of pandering to the Islamic vote. They're worried about the Greens. You look at what happened in Gorton and Denton. Islamists want to wipe Jews off the face of the earth. Surely, if that's the case and your party is pandering to that section of the community, then Labour has to take some responsibility for the rise in anti-Semitism, Carl Turner.
Well, there has been a rise in anti-Semitism across the board, hasn't there? It's not just individual incidents. It's been happening for a long time now. It's happened since, frankly, the attacks in Israel in October, I think it was 2025, wasn't it? I mean, it's been happening since then, and it's on the rise. I mean, we've got a recent report out of students refusing to be in accommodation with Jews. I mean, what an utter disgrace.
Do you think that the Labour government should take some responsibility for this rise in anti-Semitism?
I think we should all take responsibility when anti-Semitism is rising. It just is. It's just a fact. And I think it's not just about the Labour government. I think it's about politics and politicians, actually. We should be dealing with it. We should be putting more funding in, but you've got to do more than that. It's about political decisions. I think it's fair to make the point that the Labour Party historically has relied on votes from Muslim communities, and on that basis, we've been shy to deal with things like inquiries, in my view. We shouldn't be shying away from any of that stuff. We should be getting on with what we need to do. It shouldn't be about where the votes come from, in my view. And I think in any event, if you look at what's happened in the recent by-election in Manchester, it seems to me that we can't do enough to get that support back. So the Greens won in an area where we would have historically would have won. So we've just got to be tough on what's happening, actually. I think what I saw yesterday, and I saw my colleague, the Member of Parliament, Sarah Sackman, there, with Wes Streeting, and I was just utterly surprised and shocked and saddened, actually, that we're in a situation where innocent people who do a charitable thing had those ambulances attacked. It was just vile to see it.
I couldn't agree more. And for the people who are saying, come on, call it out, you go further than any Labour politician. You've agreed about the net zero madness. I think Shabana Mahmood speaks great, whether she can see it through or not. But there is absolutely no doubt, the point that I made, parts of Islam want to wipe Jews off the face of the earth. And if you are pandering to that, I'd put this to a Green candidate if they would come on, right? I think that's an issue. We've talked quite seriously about Emma Webber. We've talked about net zero. We've talked about the anti-Semitism rise. I just want to finish in a slightly more light-hearted way, and I'm going to start with a video of a squirrel. Have you seen this video at all? By the way, this is a. It's not going to work. That's a squirrel, Carl Turner, in a London park, snapped smoking a vape. Now, you and I both vape. We know that. Here's the question. This is a grey squirrel perched on a wooden thing. I don't know what flavour the vape is, but strawberry. A social worker, I guess what his response to this, a social worker was so appalled that they contacted the local council and said she was worried about the impact this could have on the squirrel. And all I can do is sit here and think, that park's probably full of people with knives and ketamines and bags of heroin, and some stupid, small-minded social worker is worried about a damn squirrel. Your comments, please, Carl Turner.
Bless the corn socks. I mean, look, honestly, I'm sure the squirrel's going to be all right as a result of that. But I mean, if you want to make a point about littering in parks, fine. you know, get the litter picked up. But, yeah, I think the score will be all right, Jeremy, to be honest.
You and I are about the same age. I'm probably older than you. Front of the Sun today, Barmy Beebe decides to ban Bob Geldof. Not Geldof, Monkhouse. I've done it all morning. Bob Monkhouse.
Yeah.
I don't know if you know this. Have you ever seen The Repair Shop? We're about that age, you and me.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, so The Repair Shop, they had an episode whereby his family, Monkhouse's family, bought the joke book in, and a production worker was so offended by the jokes that the BBC have banned it. Do you think that's a good idea, Carl Turner?
I don't think anything like that's a good idea. It's just farming, isn't it? I mean, comedy, isn't it?
Yes. Well, comedy, yeah, but you can't tell a joke anymore, can you?
Well, you've got to be a bit careful about who you offend nowadays, Jeremy. That's the problem. I mean, I don't want people to be going out there
I say we've stopped laughing at ourselves. I say that the greatest comedian that treads any board right now is Ricky Gervais because he doesn't give a damn.
I agree with that.
And
It's
people
brilliant.
laugh. You can laugh. Do you know what, mate? And I mean this.
Don't turn up, Jeremy. Don't turn up if you're going to be offended. You have to go. Nobody's forcing you to turn up. Look, I'm not into Chubby Brown, but people are. If they want to go and see Chubby, get on with it. I'm not going to ban it.
Buy a ticket. You are so right, man.
Not many. I can't remember how long ago it was, Jeremy, but there was a talk of banning Chubby Brown from doing something in Newcastle. I mean, what on earth are we on about? Just let people go and enjoy themselves, for goodness sake. I won't turn up and see Chubby Brown. He's not my cup of tea. But I don't mind anybody who does. My missus might go. She thinks he's funny.
Do you know what, mate? You will always have a place on this show. You are the most sensible. They've missed a trick, No, you don't need to worry about being involved with that Labour government. You're far too commonsensical. Thank you so much. We love you. Carl Turner, Labour MP for Hull East. It's a regular weekly thing. 9:23. Morning, Adrian.
Morning, Jeremy. It's Adrian from East Sussex. I'm just listening to your interview with Barnaby's mother, and yeah, it's got to me a bit. I have my son down in Bournemouth University, and it really brings it home. Just very quickly, how on earth, as a country, have we got to this point where we've got a government and a civil service, a police force, everybody who's so ideologically evil, ideologically bought into racism, anti-Semitism, just accepting a terrorist organisation? The IRGC is a terrorist organisation, yet this government refuses to prescribe it. We're happy for people to be racistly attacked if they're white or if they're Jewish. It's all bloody wrong. I really hope all the sensible people across the country wake up at every election and make sure that they vote, and we get some people in to bring our country back to the light, because we're sinking into the pit of hell.
Some breaking news this morning revealed that under the Terrorist Act, 242 people were arrested in the year to June of this year.
Something you can indulge in as to all the people who aren't going to prison because, well, there's no prison space.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back, 9:27. Julia here from 10 o'clock this morning. Ian Collins from 1 and Kev O'Sullivan sounding great on Drive Time. That's your line-up on Talk today, 0344 499 1000. I normally like Carl Turner. That was a load of incoherent rambling about Labour's role in the rise of anti-Semitism. They are 100% culpable. Good morning to Gary, who says, so maybe I'm wrong. As an ex-oil worker, who is to say Norway are not depleting UK oil deposits? Some of those deposits span the divisional fields and the line between Norway and the United Kingdom. Probably that's happening. How do you think the new man in charge of the BBC will tackle the repair shop production worker? Do you think he'll find a safe space to make him feel good about himself? Probably. That's what'll happen. He'll be so traumatised. Oh, God. Martin. Grey squirrels are an invasive species and therefore classed as vermin. Get a real job, Mrs. Social Worker. Bob Monkhouse was and is a legend. The left need to be shipped out. I couldn't agree more, but we haven't got any ships to do it with. There's only one, HMS Dragon. Stephen Northants, how will the new man in charge of the BBC tackle the repair shop worker? I've done that. I bet they're all saying the same thing. I mean, look. Bear in mind, we now live in a country, I don't know if you heard this yesterday, we did a show yesterday. Leeds County Council, Labour Council, decided to send an email to all its staff last Friday which said, we know that you might be traumatised by the visit by Nigel Farage, that far-right thug, to our city. If you are feeling traumatised by Mr Farage, we've got a safe space in the council offices for the next week and we'll provide you with some therapy. We've got social workers moaning about squirrels. Council workers are too traumatised because Nigel Farage just came to the city and spoke to people who wanted to listen. All of that, right? All of that, and you put that against Emma Webber fighting for the justice for her son Barnaby and saying there's institutionalised problems in this country. We seem to be getting... Maybe it's me. All of our priorities wrong. Let's move to what's happening in Iran. I love my next guest with a passion. Didn't sound right. Retired British Army General Sir Simon Mail. Sir Simon, good morning, sir. How are you?
I'm very well indeed, thank you.
I'm going to play you a clip. This bloody government seemed to cherish the fact yesterday that HMS Dragon, your feet, finally arrived in Cyprus. It's only taken 3 weeks. Let's say good morning to John Healey, the Defence Secretary. Go, John.
I can confirm that HMS Dragon has arrived in the Eastern Mediterranean and tonight begins operational integration into Cyprus's defence alongside allies.
Simon, do we know where we are? I mean, we've got... I mean, you know more than me. Trump said... well, the Iranians are saying he's looking for a way out, whether he is or not. He says we're having talks. They're saying, no, we're not. Iran's still firing missiles at Israel. Israel says they're still going to fire weapons at thing. Netanyahu says that. Starmer won't say at all if London can be hit by missiles or what help he's going to give, because that sums him up. Where are we at? Because the overall view from me is we've got absolutely no infrastructure, no investment, and we don't really know what's going on, pal.
Well, there's a certain amount of truth to what you're saying, Jeremy, as usual. I think, interestingly, what the negotiations are, if you can call them negotiations, back-channel chats with the Iranians, represent an opportunity for the Iranians to have an off-ramp, and also for, I suppose, Donald to have an off-ramp. We've done, I say we collectively, the Americans, the Israelis, have done extraordinary damage to Iran's nuclear ambitions, its ballistic missile ambitions. One has to say whether that missile could reach London or not. It is a signal that they had a capability, and in time, if they had enriched enough uranium, formed a bomb, they would then have announced to the world that we were now all within an umbrella that they could hit. And undoubtedly, they've really whacked the proxy terrorists, which I hope will also include those who are now operating in our own country. Just witness what happened with those ambulances in North London the other day. But at the same time, at the heart of it is, how do we open the Straits of Hormuz? A deal on the table with the Iranians is the one that was on the table when we had the 12-day war. Back off from your nuclear ambitions, stop your malign influence, and we will open the world markets to you, O Iran, for sale of your oil and the lifting of sanctions. The Iranians always negotiate in bad faith, and eventually Trump and Israel decided it was time to call them out. We've got all sorts of second and third order consequences, but I, for one, am delighted that certain threats to the region have been taken off the table by this robust action. And we'll now have to see whether the Iranians realize that the regime is hugely under threat, not just from the Israelis and the Americans, but their own folk, and get on with doing something.
It's really interesting, the sort of coverage and the rhetoric. So much of the press would be anti-Trump. That just happens in England. It happens across the world. You know, you described it as off-ramp. The Iranian national television station saying that he blinked first. Others will say he's a genius. This was always his plan. What does become apparent is the control, to a degree, that Iran has over the Straits of Hormuz, and then, of course, oil production and the prices. Do you, if it finishes at the negotiating table now, do you believe that whatever's happened over the last 24 days has been worth it, Sir Simon?
Certainly. I have no doubt about it. I've watched Iran's activities in the Gulf and wider region, be it Lebanon, be it down in Gaza, be it in the Sahel. We have Hezbollah and IRGC, I can only call them terrorists, operating alongside the Russian Africa Corps, fomenting migration flows and instability even in sub-Saharan Africa. They've been a poisonous influence across the region. And at least off the table now is the ballistic missile and nuclear file. Now, Iran can either double down, in which case I suspect it stays numbered by its own people in due course, or it can try and salvage something. The regime, it's been intimidating and indoctrinating its people for decades.
But are you surprised, taking that point? I agree with you, but the reason there's been criticism of Trump, Sir Simon, is that he said, no boots, we'll get it done, the people will rise and there will be a new Iran. Of course, that's easy to say, and of course the reality of war is sometimes very different, but the people haven't risen, have they? They haven't. Now, is that because of control, or is that a lack of will? And how does the world create that will, or is it a natural thing in your mind?
Well, there was a time, I suppose, when they were on the streets a few weeks ago, as you remember, Jeremy, before the Basij and the IRGC decided to kill 30, 40,000 of its own people. They were severely intimidated then. A lot of their leaders were killed. And of course, for every person, there's a family. If you can intimidate one, you terrorize the whole family. So I suppose it's unsurprising that this has happened. The regime has its back totally to the wall. It's very brittle, but it still holds all the instruments of repression and power at the moment. But they must be aware that their days are numbered. At the moment, of course, we're all focused on the Straits of Hormuz. But again, I say to people, I think when we last spoke, Jeremy, we were about halfway into the bombing campaign that preceded the first Gulf War. So the planning, the target lists, they're working their way through them. But ultimately, it's got to have a political objective. At the heart of that, of course, is reopening the Strait of Hormuz. And there will be people in the Iranian government who will be looking very nervously around, unless they're completely fanatically committed to dying in the rubble of Tehran, as it were, who will be thinking that there must be a way we can off-ramp. Don't mistake their bravado for a position of strength.
You are always welcome on this show. It's just, you are the font. Thank you, legend. Sir Simon Mail, retired British Army General, giving his take on what's happening. That's actually also 25 to 10. Let's go to the former chair of the Defence Select Committee, good friend of the station, Tobias Elwood. Good to see you, old boy. How are you?
Good to talk to you. How are you?
I'm all right. I'd love your take. We haven't got long. Some of the papers and lots of people are saying that Trump has blinked first. Sir Simon Mail, from a military point of view, saying don't be taken in by that. What's your take, Tobias?
Well, I listened with care with what the general had to say. A lot of respect for him, but he is speaking like a general. I'm afraid the mindset of the Iranian regime has not changed. This war now continues to escalate, with Trump clearly not in control of events and issuing ultimatums that are actually likely to inflame the conflict. And Iran shows no sign of capitulating. Its defenses are diminished, as Sir Simon says, but the regime is still there. It's still clear it's been preparing for this war for decades, decentralizing its political and military command structures, able to wreak havoc across the Middle East, including the Straits of Hormuz. We still don't know what Trump's objectives are. What does victory look like? He seems surprised that it's not all neatly concluded as he got in Venezuela, when incredible US military firepower, is brought to bear. Iran is demonstrating both the capacity and the will to keep fighting. And Trump is left only with bad options now of what to do next, not just operationally, but also in managing the wider economic fallout and, can I dare say, a rupture in the relationship between America and Europe. This is, I'm afraid, beginning to look like a textbook example of how not to attack another country.
It's interesting. I heard what Sir Simon was saying. I actually do agree with a lot of what you've said about it. It does look like... I liked the Venezuela analogy. That was very quick. Maduro in and out, and the language initially was that it would be in and out very quickly, and then of course the doubters. And bear in mind, he came to power in America. Let's be perfectly honest and straight. He came to power saying, "I'll sort out the economy, and I'm not interested in foreign wars." Well, the economy in America is struggling, and he could be in a position, unless he off ramps, for want of a better phrase, to be stuck exactly. And of course, people will look to Bias. I remember. They'll remember Afghanistan, they'll talk about Vietnam, which is probably why he's looking for a way out. Can I get a response quickly, though? I want to play a little clip. Did you see our Prime Minister at the Liaison Committee yesterday when challenged about defence spending? Have a look at this. This is very interesting. Very quickly, peeps.
The Chiefs of Staff are saying we need to be ready for war. So when are we going to be prepared, and prepared for what?
We are finalising the investment plan. That sits with the Strategic Defence Review.
Smacks of an enormous complacency.
Well, this smacks of the fact that for years there was underinvestment by the last government and the stripping out and following out of our armed forces.
We've had 18 months
Copyright
to deal
Ben
with that.
Wallace.
I've got to be really honest, Tobias. I don't agree with much our Prime Minister says, but he's right there about how the military's been stripped back. You and I have talked about this repeatedly by successive governments, my friend.
We have indeed, and we need to reflect on where does any government spend money. There's only two reasons why more money is poured into our armed forces. The armed forces change. One is because they get absolutely defeated on the battleground, so you have to regroup, rearm, and start again. Or secondly, society demands it. No government, I'm afraid, including Conservatives, are willing to invest in defence when they are not pressured to do so. The Prime Minister is well aware, because of the briefings he's getting from the heads of the armed forces, that the world is getting more dangerous, not less. It's not, so the money should be put there. But because society itself still feels that, yes, it feels dangerous, but my life continues, and there's more domestic priorities to spend money on, I don't want to spend more money on defence. The penny will drop when an acute event happens, when we get an attack, as we saw in Akrotiri at the RAF base in Cyprus. When one of those hits the UK, then we will wake up, the nation will say, let's spend more. Until that moment, I'm afraid it's unlikely that you're going to see anybody, because who's going to invest more, put up taxes, or rob other government departments to spend more on defence? It's the wrong call. You and I both know that. But that's the reality of politics.
Mate, lovely having you on. Been too long. Look after yourself, and thank you so much indeed for coming, and we'll have you on again soon. Tobias Ellwood on Talk Breakfast, 20 to 10.
Across the UK. On DAB+. On YouTube. On your mobile. And on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back, 18 minutes to 10. Julia at 10. Yesterday afternoon, I had the opportunity to speak to Brooke Goldstein, who is an American human rights lawyer, a woman who's written the great book, End Jew Hatred. I asked her, how do we end the scourge of anti-Semitism? Have a watch.
The Jewish community is the oldest, most persecuted minority in human history. And we are still dealing with this problem. It is a mind virus. It is a sickness. And it is a sickness that if it infects a society, it will take the whole society down. You have a problem right now of growing radicalization, particularly theologically motivated radicalization, Islamist radicalization in the UK, but also throughout the West. We have it here too in the United States. And we need to call it out because it is a threat to all Western democracies. But unfortunately, there are two things that have happened that have prevented us from identifying the threat, speaking about the threat, and defeating it. Number one, all of these false cries of Islamophobia. I call it the Islamophobia campaign, which has been intentionally and strategically directed to silence our free speech on issues of national security, and of course, threats of violence. And you see now what happened to these ambulances. This is a direct attack on the Jewish community. And we respond to anti-Semitism with politics. Oh, this is about Israel-Palestine, or we can excuse it because they're angry at Israel. You are playing into their game. You are creating an intentional misdirection. You're giving them an affirmative defense for lawlessness because they hate Israel, therefore they can attack Jews. This is racism. This is bigotry. This is violent terrorism. And the sooner your politicians wake up and realize it and call it out for what it is, the safer you will become as a country.
You're far more erudite than me. I struggle, though, and I have to say I've been an advocate and will continue to be so of defending the Jewish community. I have many Jewish friends, and I've said every single day, you won't have heard, but I don't understand. To me, any racism is abhorrent. You talked about a decent society. How can you have a decent society when a group of people, a nation if you want, who went through the worst trauma, the most vile trauma all those years ago, should be persecuted? I always point out to people that in the Middle East, the only democratically elected government, right, is Israel, and I will defend it forever. But of course, you make the point. People cannot seemingly find a line between what is happening in Gaza or what is happening now, of course, in Iran, and the 250,000 Jews that live in this country. You'll be aware of this, Brooke. I mean, I have friends whose kids cannot go on the local bus in their school blazers because they go to a Jewish school. I speak to Jewish friends of mine the whole time, and they say growing up this was normal, whereas kids of 12 and 13 were told the facts of life by their English parents. The Jewish kids were sat down and told about their history and how their countrymen and women were persecuted simply for being Jews. And it doesn't surprise me at all that the Jewish community is as, not entrenched, but as supportive of each other and so determined to survive as it is. But I don't understand, and I'd love to know if this happens in America. We seem to have a blind spot in England. I mean, we have a Labour government now, I'm not asking you to get political, that had to root, or said they'd rooted out anti-Semitism after Jeremy Corbyn left. But our current Prime Minister, who's married to a Jewish woman, is far... I mean, the other week he created an anti-Muslim czar, right? Because apparently all the hassles that were happening, and I'm against any form of racism, I'll make that point, but what about an anti-Semitism czar? And I want to ask you a question. Do you think anti-Semitism isn't viewed in the same way globally? Is it skin colour? Because for me, setting fire to ambulances, persecuting people in the street, attacking people just for being who they are, it doesn't matter the colour of your skin, does it?
No, absolutely not. And the issue, though, is, and you said it so well, this whole issue of anti-Jewish discrimination has become so highly politicized with this hyper focus on, and the spreading, frankly, of untrue, malicious, dangerous blood libels against the world's only Jewish state, and then the projection of the crimes of a foreign state on people in the West because of their skin color, because of where they were born, or because of their religion. You know, if I hated the government of China because of the way they handled COVID, I can't turn around to a local Chinese American or a British Chinese citizen and spit on him and call him bad names or boycott his store or vandalize his property just because he was born in China. I can't project the perceived crimes on a foreign state on someone because of their identity, because of their protected...
So why does that happen to the Jewish communities across the globe, do you think?
Well, this is really the oldest trick in the book. It used to be that it was just directly against the Jews. The blood libels that were spread by Nazi and Soviet and then shared with Islamists, this propaganda did directly call out the Jews. But now Israel and Zionism is used as a euphemism. And the fact of the matter is you have an intentional and horrid amount of misinformation and misreporting. Just here in the United, I mean, first, misreporting on what happened on October the 7th and the failure to understand cause and effect when you have a terrorist group, a designated terrorist group that has held its own society hostage, that has built the largest terror tunnel facility this world has ever seen, and then uses those civilians to shoot rockets at the civilians of another state. Of course, there's going to be civilian casualties, but the blame is always on the Jewish state as opposed to those terrorist groups who have intentionally put those civilians in harm's way and use them as political pawns because it knows the world does not care about dead Palestinians, certainly does not care about Palestinian children. They would have stopped funding the indoctrination of those children and funding the terrorist groups that recruit them as child soldiers and as human shields. They want to see dead civilians, and the dead civilian strategy works for Islamist terrorist groups because they know the media will spin it and place the blame on the Jewish state.
You know, in the United Kingdom, we have, and you know this, obviously you know this, you're a renowned voice, but, you know, our state broadcaster, the BBC, when I was on air this morning reporting this ambulance horror in Golders Green, and everybody was adamant, bar the mayor, that this was an anti-Semitic crime. He just said it was unfortunate. Everybody was of the same mindset, and yet the BBC didn't report it. And there are, you know, I'm not one of those people that will spend its time talking about fake news or the mainstream media, but you do begin to question whether the Jewish community in its entirety, wherever it is in the world, is an easy target. I just wanted to ask you a question, loads that I want to ask you, but do you think half the issue is that people cannot separate what's happening in Gaza or what's happening in Palestine? We have hate marches in our streets where people can burn the Jewish flag, but you can't walk past with the British flag, the Union Jack, you get arrested by the police. Do you think that part of the problem for Israel is this inability for people to separate what's going on in, say, Gaza or now Iran from a Jewish community of 250,000 people living in the United Kingdom who have been here, built lives, got married, built businesses and have been successful in their lives?
Well, it's a small part of the problem because that is the absolute racist part about it. As I said earlier, the misinformation in the media is the problem. But the bigger problem, frankly, is the societal suicide that I see happening all over Europe and throughout Canada, and now is creeping into American dialogue and debate, where you have just opened up the gates to an Islamist infiltration and the radicalization on your streets to the points where your politicians are too afraid to call out an anti-Semitic attack because of fear of what violent reprisals from the Muslim community. We have violence on the streets in the West by people chanting not just death to the Jews, but death to the West, death to America, death to the UK, right? I don't want to be a dead canary in a tunnel. And I don't know how many times over the last 15 years, people counterterrorism experts, people in the news media, just like me, even though they've tried to silence us and shut us down, have been screaming at the top of our lungs about the radicalization. And it's starting on college. It started on college campuses. He's now seeped out to your society, and you've got to get a handle on it.
And it's interesting, in this country, we have I'm sure you're aware, we have a Prime Minister who, as I told you earlier, yes, is married to a Jewish woman, but who looks politically very unsure of where he is and very unsure of an electorate who want him out the door very quickly. We've got the rise of a party in England called the Green Party, who don't talk about environmental issues. They've grabbed hold of the Muslim vote, the trans vote, and they spend their entire time bashing on about Gaza, and yet the left of the country has seemingly fallen behind them. So we have a Prime Minister who's worried about his politicians losing out, and so his rhetoric is aimed there. This morning, when I did that interview, I was beyond me. I mean, it's almost an act of terrorism. Forget the fact that the Jewish community fund these ambulances and drive these ambulances, and it's not just for the Jewish community, by the way, it's for the entire community, which tells you something. And yet, I repeat, we can have hate marches in London, people waving the Palestinian flag that don't even know where Palestine is, setting fire to a Jewish flag. We had some revolting, I don't know if you ever heard this story, some revolting pop star who was allowed, and it was streamed by the BBC for 5 hours, Bob Villan he's called, deaf to the IDF, and that was allowed to go out on our state broadcaster for 5 hours without anybody doing anything about it. To me, maybe I'm in the wrong game, but to me it seems grossly unfair. I don't understand it. I've never understood it. You talk about radicalisation. I wouldn't disagree with you. Unfortunately, and I'm sure you have it in the States, although you have a president, and I don't agree with everything that he says, but at least he calls out this stuff. Our politicians are too frightened to call it out. And by the way, any form of racism, any form of crime, any form of terrorism, I would come hard on. But we don't do that. We call out, there was an occasion in England which you might be aware of. There were some riots in Southport after the needless murder of 3 young kids some time ago, and people took to the streets, and they were immediately labelled by this government as far right and rounded up and thrown in jail. Well, I would have rounded up those thugs that set fire to those ambulances last night and rounded them up and called that hard left and dangerous and radicalisation, but nothing happens. A few platitudes and you end up thinking this really is unfair and it's one way and it doesn't work. And I think, don't know about America, I think people are waking up to that. And I told a story today, Brooke. I was at the airport the other day. There was a traditional Orthodox Jew and his wife, and I'm on the carousel, and I literally said, I'm sorry. And he said, thank you. I felt like I had to apologise for my country. How bad's that?
Well, thank you for that. But I have to say something honestly. I am not worried about the Jews. We are a very ancient community. We will survive. We have survived people who have come up against us before. I'm not worried about Israel. Israel is strong. Israel is clearly defeating its enemies on the battlefield. I'm worried about Europe. I'm worried about Canada. And I think it's a huge mistake to think this is just an issue of anti-Semitism. That is what they want you to believe. Oh, it's just a Jewish problem. It's just people attacking Jewish communities and Jewish hospitals, and you don't need to worry about it. Believe me, they're coming for you too. Terrorism is indiscriminate. And while you might think, well, if only Israel did something differently, if only we gave the Islamists another Palestinian Islamic jihad state, we would appease the terrorists. The fact that you still even have this mentality, okay, how many years after 9/11, how many years have we been dealing with Islamist madness? The fact that you're turning a blind eye, at least Hitler lied, right? When Europe was looking to appease Nazi Germany, at least they lied to us and said, no, we're not going to invade Europe. The difference between the mullahs and the Nazis is the mullahs are telling you straight out what they're going to do. They're chanting death to America. They're developing nuclear missiles. They're declaring their intent to use those missiles. They're currently funding terror proxies around the world. Yeah. I mean, they tried to assassinate the President of the United States on American soil. If that's not an imminent threat, I don't know what is. And I don't know what it's going to take for the West to wake up. The Jews are wide awake. Our eyes are wide open. We're acting in our own self-interest. And if we cannot be protected, if you cannot enforce the rule of law in your own country against a minority community, you're going to go down. And so that's the message. And we're witnessing it, and we're seeing what's happening, how the police are too afraid and the politicians are too afraid to enforce the rule of law. When you cannot enforce the rule of law in your own country, you enforce it selectively, it's going to be a big problem there. And it's an imminent problem.
It's a pretty damning indictment of my country, and one that I share. We seem to have politicians certainly in power here. And by the way, there's plenty about Trump, and I'm sure you'd agree that I don't agree with. I agree with the premise behind this latest
conflict. Lots has happened today. I'm leaving. It's finished. No, it's not. Yes, it is. That's the man. But at least he has the courage, I think, to face. And you made a point. I mean, you know, all those people that jump up and down. The mad mullahs of Tehran have financed every proxy terrorist group the length and breadth of this world. And I said the other day on air to somebody, and they didn't like it. They were saying, oh, you know, Israel and America trying to enforce this, that, and the other. And I went, do you know what? This approach, why don't you go and speak to one of the parents of one of the kids who was blown to pieces in the Manchester Arena bombing and try and explain how you think this is okay to allow this to happen. I think it needs to be done in the correct way. And talking to people like you, it might be a damning indictment, but it's a very, very true perspective. I mean, internationally, I think the United Kingdom is not seen as it used to be seen, and I think that's a very dangerous thing. Listen, I would love, you know what a breakfast show is like. It's not a lot of time. I would love to do a more in-depth chat when you get a chance. Are you ever over in the United Kingdom?
Now I have reason to be, but I would just add to one thing you just said to conclude. Europe is completely defenseless. It has no defenses against ballistic missiles. Germany is buying its defenses from Israel, you know. So Iran is an imminent threat, not just to the United States, but to Europe as well. And they should thank the United States and Israel for doing what they're doing. This is just what I find to be mind-boggling.